Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Unacademy. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Success Sampath interacting with you. Unacademy, India's largest and the best online education platform. What are all the benefits you are likely to get once you enroll yourself in Unacademy? Ladies and gentlemen, if that's going to be your question, of course, you got daily live classes like this, and you can chat with your educator, and you can engage yourself in all-round productive discussions, and you can also ask all your genuine doubts and participate in the answer polls. All these things you can do when the session's going on. And we got structured courses here, which is completely based on UPSC Civil Service Examination pattern and syllabus as well, so that we ensure you never get deviated from the expected framework. You save time, you save energy too, ladies and gentlemen. And we've got live test and quiz program. Of course, it's not knowing the stuff, knowing to deliver the stuff, because delivery matters. We got a mechanism for that, to evaluate your preparation at various levels by conducting regular mock tests and quiz programs. And you get in turn a detailed analysis based on your performance. You come to know where you are strong, where you are weak, and the time you have consumed in solving a particular question. Ladies and gentlemen, once you enroll yourself in Unacademy, of course, you will get unlimited access towards, more than 1 million videos, of course. Whatever may be your electronic device, whether it is mobile phone, laptop, even desktop, irrespective of your electronic device, you can learn from anywhere, anytime. What you have to do, please download Unacademy learning app immediately. Whether it is Android or iOS, ladies and gentlemen, once you download, you are ready to access all the benefits what we have enlisted in front of you, right? Who is this interacting with you? Of course, this is Success Sampath from Chennai with unique experience of got exposed to the fields of engineering, management, and legal education. With 25 years of experience in the field of coaching, especially shaping the careers of civil service aspirants, with my team, I could witness humble results. Of course, 250 plus, that results as IAS, IPS, IRS, IFS officials. All my kids are working in different parts of India. Some of them in abroad as well, part of Union External Affairs Ministry, you might be aware. And you can also parallelly ask me another question. What's your vision, sir? If that's going to be your question, ladies and gentlemen, to be part of the solution, especially by simplifying the complexity, by enabling youths of India, by providing career solution to begin with, later to embrace the global community. Fortunately, that this particular vision of mine is completely in alignment with Unacademy's vision. We are working together to shape you so that you realize your dream, goal. You become leader or officer in your own capacity. Ladies and gentlemen, you can also reach me through Telegram channel, of course, Unacademy _ the Sampath. Or you can also watch a lot of my videos already available on the part of Unacademy YouTube channels, whether it is optional subject sociology or essay paper or ethics and integrity, and even that the international relations. And moreover, when you download the platform, there also you can attend all my live shows, that live programs. And apart from that, once you have subscribed the course, you can also go back and watch all those that previously recorded videos. Maybe the solving questions on the part of prelims, because 5-year questions that the prelims we solved the MCQs, and many questions came out of that. I get feedback. Thanks to that feedback, and not only that, that gave us energy. We felt incentivized. I started discussing even the mains questions also, focusing that towards the forthcoming mains. Even the people likely to write 2021, 2022 also can participate in that. Of course, you will come to know. Ladies and gentlemen, you can also reach me through the social network to get to benefit more. Of course, let me take you to the next level. Yes, it's not only me. We more than 100 plus top educators of India part of this Unacademy waiting to support you, so that you become officer or leader. You become part of the steel pillars of the nation. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Unacademy. Of course, when we talk about UPSC Civil Service Examination, ladies and gentlemen, we've got more than 15,000 courses. Under UPSC Civil Service Examination, we have got the devised two major programs. One is Plus program, another one is Iconic program. What is Plus program? Yes, you got daily live classes, test series, and unlimited practice session. Of course, structured schedule mechanisms part of this Plus program. And depending upon your time availability, whether you are work going or college going aspirant, and also the budget, you can choose the programs here. Starting from 1 month to maximum the 3 years, we got a program. Whether it is prelims come mains, the general studies program, or including optional subject. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. Please use my referral code, say success, to avail maximum 10% discount. Almost you see 9,000 difference. Once you use this referral code, you will come to know. And more than this Plus program, ladies and gentlemen, we strongly recommend Iconic program. What is Iconic program? That is a unique program where you will be allotted a personal coach, a mentor, to understand your nature, and to give you the feedback based on your nature, and also to train on everyday basis in terms of answer writing exercises. And it's almost like individual attention. So it is virtual learning. Of course, that there is one person to monitor you, to guide you, to give you feedback, so that to set you on track, especially. That is the unique feature on the part of this Iconic program. Here too, you've got that 1 year program, or 2 years program, 3 years program. If you're college going, naturally you will go for that long duration program, because you have to make that eligibility criteria. You might be aware. Ladies and gentlemen, here too you can use my referral code, say success, to avail maximum 10% discount. Once you avail this discount, you see almost that you see some 15,000 rupees difference you get that because of the discount. And moreover, the Iconic program, for which the price hike is on the card. Please rush to avail this the benefit immediately. Technically speaking, ladies and gentlemen, you end up paying near that 80 to 100 rupees if you calculate in terms of per day basis. That 80 to 100 rupees, not even the expenditures you meet on everyday basis towards your evening snacks, but you ensure your career. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Unacademy. This is Success Sampath interacting with you. Let me take you to the next level. It's not only that, even for all popular optional subjects for which we extend our support on the part of Unacademy, here to use my referral code, say success, to avail maximum 10% discount. Of course, you get around almost 5K differences. You see the difference. It's that way, ladies and gentlemen. And that only 6 months, that remaining. And when it comes to, when we talk about 2021 prelims, that rush to, for your enrollment, ladies and gentlemen, we've got variety of teams, working for, that different batches, of course, 2021, 2022, 2023, the expert teams we have, that of course with the top educators of India, ladies and gentlemen. That is what the basic difference between offline academy and online academy. Here you will be covered the complete syllabus, and also the experts, that the top educators, and you will be given prelims, that test series with analysis, you come to know. And you can also download the PDF study materials, and you got dedicated doubt clearing sessions. We are very happy to answer all your questions, because that the very trust you the put on us, the confidence you have in our platform, ultimately we will take care of you. You need not worry about it. Rest assured, ladies and gentlemen. And we also that help you to prepare for oral interview part of the mains examination. So end to end support we extend through our various teams, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Unacademy. This is Success Sampath interacting with you, whether it is bilingual or exclusive Hindi or English medium, ladies and gentlemen. That whether it is 2021, 2022, 2023, that we've got different batches, that with expert team, ladies and gentlemen, you can participate and benefit more. Yes. As I told you in the beginning, right, the Iconic price hike is on the card. You might be aware the unique feature, you will be allotted a personal coach, mentor, to take care of you, to understand your nature, and to study, that suggest study planner accordingly. You can also have, that booster session if you want, attend again. And not only that, that the high intensity workshops, conducted, you can benefit more. As I said, answer writing practices on everyday basis. So all these things will accelerate your preparation with, that everyday material, the content what we are talking about. We also evaluate yourself, as I said in the beginning, that in every stage of your preparation. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the right time. Let me, say once again, welcome to Unacademy. This is Success Sampath interacting with you. Of course, this is right time. Let me take you to the very purpose and interaction. Ladies and gentlemen, this is in continuation of our previous, the discussions part of this YouTube channel of Unacademy. When we talk about UPSC Civil Service Examination, the mains, you got, optional subject where sociology is very popular and highly scoring subject. You might be aware. That you just go through the previous results, you will come to know. Why it is highly scoring, why it is popular, because you are in touch with that subject on everyday basis. Are you living in family? Have you got exposed to the educational institution? Any one of the family members married? Of course, you know what is marriage as an institution, and the important role played by material resources. Where you talk of production, consumption, distribution of goods and services, that's economic institution. Definitely you may be belonging to a particular the faith, a religion, maybe even against the religion as atheists. It's up to you. Where we talk about religious institutions. When we mingle with the public, that in general people ask your identity, maybe in terms of age, maybe in terms of gender. It's not asking your gender, it's obvious. But sometimes, of course, we've got the gender, transgender issues, LGBT community, you might be aware. That's different. It is also part and parcel of, that our social problems, they are part and parcel of marginalized sections, you might be aware. And also, that the very identity, your ethnicity, the race you belong to, the language you belong to, the caste you are born, and also the class, your economic status. Ladies and gentlemen, and not only that, all institutions you would have witnessed in your lifetime, given your span, maybe that you are in 20s, right? Of course, in front of your own eyes, you would have seen all these institutions are undergoing phenomenal shift, change, paradigm shift. That's what you call social change. That change could be in terms of, that structure, change in institutions, or change in terms of way of life, style of life. You just imagine how you dressed when you were, that in your, less than 5 years old. How today? What sort of fashion you witnessed when you were under 5? What fashion you witness today? The change in, food habits, dress style, everything, the way of life, style of life, the value system. That's called cultural change. Even the very institution family once upon a time as joint family capable of accommodating all functions of the family. Today they have been outsourced to take care of young ones. You got the crush. Otherwise, children sent at the very early age to the school, pre-KG you are talking about. And the people, when they got, that some sort of, that family quarrels ultimately, that elders used to come and, that solve the issue in the joint family. But today you got, that counseling centers, psychiatrists. And if you want to invest somewhere, you get the help of your parents in a joint family. Nowadays, you don't, discuss with your parents because you see them as limitations. That's true. But that once you become, dad, you will understand the value of dad. Once you become mom, you will understand the value of mom. That's a different story. You will come to know. I'm not going to, that threaten you. That you will have your own experience. Don't worry. So what happens, right? You got wealth managers outside. And nowadays, we are living in the world of, Swiggy, Zomato, no more kitchen. The common roof, common kitchen gone. That we are talking about, that not only that, so most of the vital functions once attached with joint family, they've been completely taken over by the rest of the institutions. Everything what I'm speaking now, this is otherwise called syllabus of sociology. This is what society. You know it, so you know the subject now. Ladies and gentlemen, it is not new. That what's my role, you can ask me. I'm not going to teach anything to you in the name of, sociological session because you know everything already. There you can ask me, what's your role, sir? My role is to play the role of connector as a bridge. I'm going to give shape to your understanding. I'm going to supply some nomenclatures, the key words, maybe linking your understanding, linking with, that some perspectives. When you talk about sociology, as a coin which has got two sides, every event has got, its own perspectives, different perspectives. In sociology, you got major perspectives. They are called structural functionalism school of thought, conflict school of thought, symbolic interactionism school of thought. So you are going to look at the same issue from different perspectives so that you understand the truth. That's otherwise called objectivity in the world of sociology. The very byproduct of sociology, objectivity, value neutrality. You never take sides. You never get influenced. But at the same time, you are capable of seeing, different aspects of the same phenomena. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, that is why, not only that, the very sociology, it's a study about society. What is society? It's not mere people, more than people. The relationship, system or network of social relationships existing among the people is called, that sociology. That society, the study about society is called sociology. How do you study about society? Because society is laboratory. That's your laboratory. But here we say, applying the methods of natural sciences, you're going to make study over society. Where is your laboratory? Society is laboratory. It's not taking one individual, mixing with another individual, heating and ultimately filtering and taking essence. No, I'm not talking about that, what you did in your chemical laboratory. Ladies and gentlemen, here you're going to apply the methods of natural sciences in the sense observation, experimentation, verification, hypothesis. Why, that Kerala has got, more girls than boys? Why the sex ratio imbalances throughout India, you talk about it's coming down. Why female, the girl child is no more preferred kid in spite of various measures taken by the government of India. Why there are some people are very poor and farmers committing suicide. And on the other side, the food corporation of India go down, food grains are wasted. And in India, why it is widening inequality? Rich gets richer, poor gets poorer. Why honor killings? Why child labors? It's almost, you focus on all, the social problem, but that what generalizations you are going to arrive at, because you travel through different perspectives, it's going to be very accurate, very precise, it's very objective, because you practice value neutrality. Otherwise, cultural relativism, you never get, prejudiced, you never get influenced. The very report, what you arrive at is called a very precise, accurate. That is the reason, social workers, social reformers, people part of judiciary, media people, so journalism, legislatures, planners, international organizations, regional organizations, everybody waiting for your report. Why? It is precise, accurate. It is German because why? It is objectivity, value neutrality, byproduct of the very sociology we are talking about, ladies and gentlemen. So this is brief introduction about that the sociology as a subject matter. That we have already discussed a lot of topics. You please watch those videos. You go back and once you finish the session, you can watch those videos. Whether it is different perspectives, even basic concepts. That very the series of sessions we had, and also social stratification, different social institutions, social change. Not only that, the thinkers, of course, we talk about Karl Marx, Emile Durkheim, that Talcott Parsons, Robert K. Merton, G.H. Mead, Max Weber, and Indian sociologist G.S. Gurye, M.N. Srinivas, that of course A or they. So we discuss, all those, you please watch those videos, you will get more ideas. I said in the beginning, it is highly scoring. Yeah, because I could score fantastic marks. Even my kids could score fantastic marks. That's why they are officers, leaders. You can join that particular club. I'm qualified enough to speak about this. Because it is very simple. Subject is very popular. You know very well. Only thing you have to know this, you have to get clarity over concepts. And you have to travel through perspectives. And also you have to use some, case studies. Because, there should be a flavor of sociology. Because that as a you are not sociologists. Of course, you are opting sociology, I understand. But the way with which you arrive at, that the very generalizations, that you should not provide solution, that you just make generalization. Because there are people waiting, that for your generalizations or report, sociological report. You should not be ideological. That is the point. You make generalization, that very objective value neutrality we are talking about, it is highly scoring. Because otherwise, what the preparation you do for your sociology, it's going to benefit for your GS paper also. In GS paper 1, you got, society topic. And also, that the very ethics and integrity, where you got, that 120 marks for theories, 130 marks means for, of course, that the very case studies, what I'm talking about, ethical case studies. That's otherwise called social problems. You're going to provide ethical solution there, where your exposure to sociology is going to benefit you highly. Out of, that essay, that you're going to write 2 essays. Or, when you take into account last 25 years of question papers, all topics can be grouped under 8 domains. One of the domains happen to be society. Definitely what you prepare. But, when you write sociology, when you write GS or essay, you should not, reveal your flavor. It should be very general in nature. But in sociology, of course, you have to write in terms of the case study. But in paper 2, Indian society, you have to write, the Indian case study. And you have to employ, that Indian sociologist there. It is that way, and also speak perspectives. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way we are talking about. One second. That's fantastic. Yes. So when that's the scenario, that it's multitasking, parallel processing. Otherwise, that the preparation, what you do for sociology, it's going to transform your personality also, as it, the transform me. It's going to transform you also in so many ways. Ladies and gentlemen, it's up to you. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way, that let me appreciate for your participation. Of course, you got brief introduction about, the sociology. You can also watch, as I said, the videos. And that when you talk about, paper two, what you learn out of, the paper one, the very theories, perspectives, various thinkers that you are going to apply in Indian context. That's what Indian society, where you got, three divisions. The third division about, social change in India, where we are talking about, how the social movements are responsible for bringing social change in India. Even today, you witness, that the farmers' movement in Delhi, because of the introduction of, farm laws, the government has got its own justification, saying that they're going for liberalization of, that very agriculture sector. Even the factor, the why it's not a, it's why it is, that not for profit sector, it can be made, a profitable sector. The government taking a lot of efforts, given the, that the economy, it has to reform the economy, it has to go for more liberalization. At the same time, there comes another question: do you parallelly protect, that the plight of small and marginal farmers? And also, that as farmers expect, that the legislation can be drawn in such a way, maybe some amendments, that so the government keep on telling, that giving assurances. In spite of that, it can go for legislation also, saying that, the MSP, minimum support price, that otherwise procurement mechanism, even the subsidies, will not be dismantled. Government coming up, with a lot of measures, but, the fast track, trial courts, everything. It is that way what we are talking about. It's not looking at only from government angle. It's not looking at only from, that the farmer's angle. You have to understand both sides. So it is that way, that it is symbolic, instrumental. The protest, what you are talking about, it is a collective effort. The mobilization of people, that either to promote change or to resist change. Here, farmers, that do not want that change. In the introduction of farm bills, it's not only farmers. Farmers are also joined by, two state governments we are talking about. The Punjab and Haryana, because of the loss of the revenue to the tune of 3,500 crores, we are talking about. So social movement is all about, even India attained independence because of the social movement. Indian national movement, you call India's independence struggle. Even the 1857, according to V.D. Savarkar, the first war of India's independence, you come to know. It is that way. You call Sipai Mutiny, but first war of India's independence. We are talking about all the struggles, socio-religious reform movements, we witness. Why? The mobilization of people, the collective effort, either to promote change or to resist change. And it has got its own leadership, it has got its own purpose, as I said, ideology. And that may vary from place to place, time to time, because, that's, getting influenced because of the local factors like the caste and other issues, or maybe, influenced by the local dominant caste we are talking about. And also the regionalism, locality factors we are talking about. So it is that way. Social movements, when we talk about why social movements, because India is a country which practices, you might be aware, of course, apart from the criticism, we have to speak the unity in diversity. That is a core principle of India. India is a country where people speaking different languages, that of different caste, different ethnicity, different religious faith people, that living together. It's a melting pot, cultural pluralism. That is why, we want to emulate the same at the global level. World as one family, Vasudhaiva Kudumbakam. So this, plurality is the character of, that the Indianness we are talking about. Of course, it's not free from challenges. When you challenge this, the diversity fabric, ultimately, the people happen to be getting affected because of the challenges to the diversity. Maybe you talk about, the marginalized section, downtrodden people, women, children, transgender, differently abled people, even minorities. So the movements, that by those, aggrieved people, when you disturb that fabric of diversity, otherwise, that the aim is to have, that social justice, egalitarian society. When in practice, when you talk about widening inequality, that's a potential threat for revolution. The protest we are talking about. As TK women, the sociology, classified, that based on the social movements can be classified in terms of the collectivity type and goal-based. whatever may be. It is that way we are talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, when you talk about India, the social movements, of course, it is not, only after independence. It's not only during, India's independence struggle. Prior to that, 1873 from where, that even 1700 from where, that you start all those various rebel, the social movements. The Sannyasi rebellion, Santal rebellion, various tribal movements we are talking about. And also farmers movements, peasant movements, the women movements, backward class movement, Dalit movements. And also you talk about, that the environmental based movements, environmental issues based, ethnicity movement you are talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, so variety of social movements. Of course, let's come back once again. So mobilization of people, it's a collective effort either to promote change or to resist change. It's with leadership, it's with purpose, ideology. But that varies from place to place, time to time. Today, our focus is going to be on, because we already discussed peasants and farmers movement in India. We also discussed, backward class movement in India. And today, we are going to discuss, that Dalit movement about, those who are all oppressed and suppressed called Dalits. You might be aware. So, that in India, the moment you talk about Dalit, you immediately recognize, that scheduled caste population alone. No, it's a broad term encompassing those who are all oppressed and suppressed, for your kind information. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. So, our bone of, the contention is going to be on Dalit movement. Definitely, there will be the hero of Dalit movement, none other than, of course, you might be aware, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar in the, during India's independence struggle and post-independence India. But it's not new of its kind, because several attempts already made. Because, if you want to understand whether backward class movement or even Dalit movements in India, first you should understand the caste system. Are you aware what is caste system? The caste is, after all, is said to be one of the forms of social stratification. You make layering in people. You classify people, you categorize people on the basis of the notion called purity and pollution. Talk about, by birth you are said to be pure, by birth you are said to be impure. We call it purity and pollution. But you hear about, that the very hierarchy, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. We are talking about that, yes. The Brahmanas, appreciating, that priest, Prohits, advising kings, Kshatriyas, the kings and warriors, and Vaishyas, mercantile community, the Shudras who resort to menial jobs. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a notion when we talk about, that the caste system. So Brahmins versus non-Brahmins. So except Brahmins, all other people are called Shudra, according to one theory. But when we talk in terms of, backward class movement, we said, when we talk about backward classes, it's not caste. Even the Constitution talks about class, not caste, because OBCs. The Mandal Commission recommendation, 27% reservation. We discussed at length. You please watch that video also. When we talk about backward classes, it is intermediate caste. It is between Brahmins on the one hand, Shudras on the other. The intermediate caste, that maybe you talk about Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, cultivating caste, artisans, servicing caste. We spoke at length. But that this theory says, that Brahmins on the one hand, Shudras on the other, intermediate castes called, backward classes, even Constitution endorsing that OBC reservation, 27% reservation. Now, see, the reservation, what do you call? It is, of course, that the protective discrimination, positive discrimination. The people hitherto oppressed, suppressed, have been, have met injustice. There should be done, that some justice. There should be a level playing field. The people hitherto oppressed and suppressed should be, see the level playing field, cutting across, that various spheres of, social life. That's why reservation is getting justified. And it is, that if only when you understand the caste system, this is according to Manusmriti we are talking about. Of course, when caste system originated, it was based on occupation. It is over the days, it acquired rigidity, a lot of taboos and social disability and oppression, suppression. People got affected by that ultimately. So there came ultimately, that the conversion to Christianity, conversion to Islam. And also, that during, that the ancient India, you heard about the Mahajana Prathas, the kingdoms, where we talk about the emergence of, the Buddhism and Jainism as heterodox sects of, the very Hinduism. Because they do not want, that orthodoxy of, Brahmanism. Otherwise, they, they felt, the Hinduism imposed some sort of, limitations, restrictions to their, mercantile activities. And also the language used by the very Hinduism, the Sanskrit, because whereas that the mercantile community, that the Vaishyas, they preferred Pali and Prakrit, local lingua franca. That is what that see the Buddhism and Jainism. You come to know. Unless and until we understand the caste system, we can never appreciate the efforts of the government, whether it is reservation for backward class movement or even for Dalits, we won't appreciate that. Ladies and gentlemen, so this particular thing, several movements I'm talking about, in that sense, when we talk about Brahmins versus non-Brahmins, the Dalit movements, when we talk about, they get ultimately contribution from backward class movements also, the efforts taken by backward class movements in different parts of India. Whether it is Justice Party in South India, Satya Sodak Samaj of Jyotiba Phule, West India, or Dravidar Kazhagam, otherwise self-respect movement, started by E.V. Ramasamy Naikar Periyar in Tamil Nadu. And also the Izhava movement, Sri Narayana Dharma Paripalana movement, that started by Sri Narayana Guru, for the plight of, that the Tadi topper, of course, you talk about Izhava, the very, Kerala we are talking about. So they also, that tremendously contributed, ultimately, Dalit movements benefited because, more than the backward class, the worst affected people, victimized people, Dalit people. The caste system itself, they are in the bottom of the hierarchy, you might be aware. That is why Dalit movements, they are talking about, even the very Dravidar Kazhagam, that the self-respect movement initiated by E.V. Ramasamy Naikar, he says, that anti-Brahmanical stand. That is what the question in the backward class movement. All backward class, the movements, they had, that the common agenda, anti-Brahmanism. But of course, we also discussed when we talk about the northern backward class movements, that totally different from the southern, backward class movement. Because northern backward class movements, of course, that the very Arya Samaj, they utilize karma theory and convince them. You are born in this particular caste because of your previous karma. And also the non-Brahmins had the tendency of, Sanskritization. They emulated the upper caste, that lifestyle. So somewhat, some gelling happened. But whereas in the South India, they were pioneers of, all those backward class movements. Ultimately, what happened, right, that, so they took anti-Brahmins, that stand, and also went against religion, went against, that otherwise practice, atheism. Not only that, they gone to the extent of, that ultimately, that burning Manusmriti. Even now, that some political party leaders, Dalit leaders, burning Manusmriti in Tamil Nadu, that citing that, that's derogatory against women. All these things, that which has got its own root with, the Dravidar Kazhagam, E.V. Ramasamy Naikar Periyar. And even, that you might be aware, the Justice Party gone to the extent of colluding with, British colonizers so as to check the advance of, Brahmins. These are all the things we spoke. So the backward class movement contributed tremendously to the cause of Dalit movement. Of course, the hero of Dalit movements, when we say, that maybe during India's independence struggle, post-independence struggle, we are talking about, Dr. B.R., that Ambedkar. Of course, he started All India, you might be, the depressed classes, you might be aware. And also, that his party, that of course got defeated, twice ultimately. And later he embraced Mahar movement, Buddhism, because, he felt, he got frustrated, that according to Dr. Ambedkar, within Hinduism, because as long as the Hinduism is there, there will be caste system. You can never see, the Hinduism without caste system. If you believe in religion, Hinduism, you have to believe in caste system. When you believe in caste system, you have to accept the supremacy of the Brahmins. So, that they felt, that oppressed, suppressed that in the hands of, that upper caste people. So ultimately, what happened? Got frustrated ultimately because of the practice of untouchability. That the very, Dr. Ambedkar, with his followers, embraced Mahar movement. That ultimately the Mahar movement you call, they embraced Buddhism. Even Mahatma Gandhi also shared, similar opinion, with Dr. Ambedkar, but Mahatma Gandhi was not in favor of giving up caste system. But he accepted that untouchability as a shame on, that Hinduism or caste system. But Mahatma Gandhi was in favor of reform, but whereas, that Dr. Ambedkar was in revolutionary mode. Might be aware. And prior to Dr. Ambedkar, even for Dr. Ambedkar, E.V. Ramasamy Naikar, the source of inspiration from West India, Jyotiba Phule, Satya Sodak Samaj. Might be aware. We are talking about, so all these things, so the very Dalit movements when you talk about in India, because, that is what the theory, the Brahmins versus non-Brahmins and the contribution of backward class movement, that benefited Dalit movements. And when compared with backward class, people, the Dalits, intermediate caste people, Dalits are worst affected people. But when we talk about caste system, that Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. But in the Gupta, that period, you might be aware, the Chandalas, outcast. There was outcast beyond this Varna. So when we talk about Dalit, the outcast are also part and parcel of Dalits. Because the very general definition, you call Avaranas. General definition, oppressed, suppressed people. Ladies and gentlemen, and also various political parties that began with, of course, that the very Dr. B.R. Ambedkar we are talking about, and he was a hero. Later, Republican Party came, and also the Bahujan Samajwadi Party we are talking about. Of course, Kanshi Ram, Mayawati, and that even South India you talk about some the Dalit parties we are talking about, Dalit Panther we are talking about. So different phases on the part of Dalit movements we are going to discuss, and also the sociological that opinion over each and every trends happen on the part of Dalit movements we are going to discuss in detail. And also there was a previous year question that that about Dalit movement we are going to link with the context. Ladies and gentlemen, finally, the sociologists and their opinion over different trends, as I said now, and the resources to be consulted. Ladies and gentlemen, hope you understand. This is brief introduction about Dalit movements in India. Dalit, those who are all oppressed and suppressed. If you want to understand backward class movement or Dalit movements in India, if you want to understand even the protective discrimination, positive discrimination, moving from equality to equity. Equity is all about understanding the unique problems on the part of every section. And otherwise, if you want to talk about, inclusive governance, otherwise, you don't want to practice social exclusion. Otherwise, you want to practice, that, inclusive administration, wherever, even financial inclusion you are talking about. That expects you to understand the caste system of India, the age-old, the ancient version, which has got, that according to M.N. Srinivas, the 21st century avatar. Caste has gone to the root level. It got institutionalized. Of course, people are saying, it is withering away caste. No. On the one side, caste is getting replaced by class, no doubt. But even in the rural area, but especially in the political institution, we are talking about the electoral politics, influence of caste in influencing the voting behavior of the masses, in appealing the masses, the identity politics, you might be aware. Even the very, northern India, the Yadava politics, you might be aware. Lalu Prasad Yadav, Mulayam Singh Yadav, even the Kurmis, the dominant caste, of course, Nitish, there we are talking about. And that Ram Vilas Paswan recently, the late Ram Vilas Paswan, late Union Minister we are talking about. Representing even the VP Singh, who became champion of, the very, backward class movement, the Mandal Commission recommendation and its implementation, you might be aware. So these are all the things, if you want to understand all this reservation, protective discrimination, positive discrimination, the plight of backward class people, even the Dalit people, you have to understand caste system. Without understanding the caste system, which is after all based on the caste is said to be one of the forms of social stratification. You make layering accordingly. You people, the people are called, high, low, subordinate, superordinate position. When you go up, you are said to be pure. When you come down, you are said to be impure. By birth, you are said to be pure or impure. That is caste system. But of course, in the beginning, it was based on occupation. It talks about endogamy. You have to marry within your caste. You have to choose your spouse within your own entity. And associated taboos, food taboo, vessel taboo, social distance, oppression, suppression. It acquired rigidity character. That's why people got, that victimized. That's why reservation is getting justified. But now we move to the next level, as I said at the beginning, evolution of, the very reservation mechanism, where we gone to the extent of giving 10% of reservation even to forward caste people. What is that? All upper caste people are not rich people. All lower caste people are not poor people. Yes, even the very reservation done to SC/ST people, there should be implementation of creamy layer, because that you have to understand. You should reach the originally intended people. We are keep on emphasizing this point. And not only that, the way forward I'm talking about, only first generation people should be given reservation, so that that really needed people will make use of the reservation measures or protective discrimination, positive discrimination. It can't be, thrown away in the name of meritocracy, because as long as you got poverty, unemployment, as long as you got, people going to bed hungry, according to global hunger index, you need, that this level playing field, the equity principle from equality. Ladies and gentlemen, even the Constitution of India, where we talk about, that Article 15 within bracket 4, 16 within bracket 4, we're talking about Article 45, Article 17, Article 164, 275, I said, 338, 340, 342. Even 5th and 6th schedule of the Indian Constitution. Yes, all, the justification that even various, that the legal mechanisms we had, the so-called, SCST, the Prohibition of Discrimination Act we are talking about, and committee commissions in favor of, that this particular, protective discrimination, you find relevance. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Unacademy. This is Success Sampath interacting with you, especially on, Dalit movements in India, part of social movements. This is part of paper 2 of your, sociology, which is said to be one of the popular and, the highly scoring optional subject, the UPSC Civil Services Examination mains, you might be aware. Ladies and gentlemen, let me take you in. Yes, we gave brief introduction about sociology. No need of going again, you might be aware. I said at the beginning also, social movement is all about collective effort, mobilization of people, either to, it is organized, either to bring change, promote change, or to protect, or to prevent change, either to promote the change or to, preserve the people, from changing. It's up to you. But it's that way, ladies and gentlemen, it's with leadership, it's with ideology or purpose we are talking about, that they act as, that interest group or pressure groups in ultimately influencing the government. There comes reactions from the government ultimately, because it affects law and order mechanism. And also recent one, Rohit Vemula in the University of Hyderabad, who committed suicide, that's clear-cut example. And that how the two tumbler system, the temple entry, restriction, how Dalits, that the Sarpanch is killed, that even recently in Tamil Nadu, and also how, that though there is going to be, that constitutional protection for them, that how they are, that getting victimized wherever the dominant castes are there, you might be aware. Ladies and gentlemen, and that, that is the thing, that Dravida Kazhagam, of course, that the self-respect movement initiated by the Periyar, that you see among all these backward class, that Dalit movements, what is the common, that element, that is, that they never tolerate inhumane treatment. So you have to recognize the unique potential, inherent potential of every individual without affecting the dignity of every individual. You can, that enter into social transaction. So with you of protecting that, unique potential, the human rights on the part of every individual, all these movements are justified. Ladies and gentlemen, even when we talk about Dalit movements, the contribution of backward class, intermediate caste movement is very tremendous. That is what we are discussing. Ladies and gentlemen, let me take you to the next level. Yes, when we talk about, of course, the hero, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, of course, that all India, that depressed classes, that not only that, Republican Party, that later creation we are talking about. And also, the embracing of Mahar movement, the very, the one of the constitutional experts committee. He was the chairman of, that the constitutional, that otherwise that's the reason he's called as, architect of Indian Constitution. The very architect, that he took care of, you might be aware. We are talking about, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, I think, it's fantastic. Right. Let me take you next level. Yes. So Dalit movements in India, we are talking about, excuse me, 1 second. So you might be aware, when we talk about Dalit, the very term itself, the meaning called, broken or oppressed, suppressed people are called Dalits. That is what the real meaning, you might be aware. So it's not only that, the very Dalit as a social category, that our social group, when we talk about, that maybe, I think you might be aware, as a sociology student, you might be aware, what is social group? After all, people come together collectively based on a particular purpose, they come and interact. That interaction acquires a repetitive structure, a pattern. A social group is. A social group is all about, the people of, that whatever maybe some over shared interest, they come together. Maybe you talk about primary social group, secondary social group, or tertiary social group, trade union, association, family, peer group, everything clear-cut examples of social group. Dalit, people share common interests, they come together. Maybe as, that association, that they bargain with the government, given, common victimization or inhuman treatment. On that sense, we say Dalit as a social group. They belong to, that avarnas. They are called avarnas. Might be aware, that maybe the terms you are familiarized. Otherwise, that the Shudras, the terminology. In general, they are called oppressed or suppressed. Yes, it is otherwise called, I said, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, the Chaturvarna. Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. Shudra themselves call, that resorting to all polluting occupations. But the Dalit, when you talk about, it goes to the next level. The fifth Varna, fifth stratum, outcast, called Avarnas. That of course, in Tamil Nadu, we are talking about Adi Dravida, Pallars, Parayars, Arundadiyars. We have got variety of things. That there, I don't know. See, we are talking about, that there is a contradiction between, Iyyars and Iyengar. It's between Shaivites and the Vaishnavites. There was, conflict. Are you aware of this? If you go to read Bhakti movement, you will come to know the conflict between, that Shias and Sunnis in Islam. The conflict between, within a caste, the subcaste fighting each other. The subcaste fight we are talking about, as you got, the movie I said, Apocalypse, where you see the tribals fighting. They're very territorial. They never tolerate, that Dikkus, foreigners. The same way, in Tamil Nadu, that I hear, that when I witnessed, that after engineering I did law, where I see, that the conflict between PLPR, Parayars and Pallars within scheduled caste, they have to come together, they have to fight against common enemy, but they are fighting themselves. So it's not free from violence, destruction of public property, vandalism. I have personally seen there. In that, I felt, that, so it is that way, the very consciousness. So, within entity, it is intra-conflict we are talking about. Of course, you might be aware. So, whatever may be, when we talk about, these are all the things. But it is under single term, umbrella term, you call Dalit. SCs, STs, oppressed, suppressed people, and also the fifth stratum of the caste hierarchy, outcast people, you call awareness. They are called, broken, oppressed people, suppressed people of all kinds, the victims of caste system. Otherwise, the people, that otherwise liable for inhuman treatment, maybe if at all. Either to people who suppress, that now, that is what the trend you witness in Dalit movements. Now they try to globalize the issue, internationalize the issue. Now they are in retaliation mode. You won't believe, in Tamil Nadu, there is one political party, they've got a slogan. I don't like to name that political party, but of course you can link with that. The party slogan says, Adanga Maru, I'll translate, don't worry. In Tamil, I'm saying, I'll translate. Adanga Maru, Attumiru, Timiri Elu, Tirupiyadi. Adanga Maru, that, refuse to obey, refuse to be controlled. Attumiru, trespass. Timiri Elu, rebellious. Tirupiyadi, retaliate. Strike back. When this is, you just see the very slogan of the party itself says how suppressed, oppressed they are hitherto. You see, it is that one political party I'm talking about. It's not speaking bad. It is their, that frustration with which they gone to that extent we are talking about. They've got their own justification. If you were in their shoes, I don't know how. So, it is that way, that it is objectivity with which you have to look at things. You don't get, that influence. Don't get biased. So the slogan says how oppressed, suppressed they are. That is the, that is what the trend, that you witness on the part of, it is not only globalization of local issues, the casteism, oppression, suppression, injustice, and also, retaliatory mode. That is why, that the Dalit, the people belonging to Dalit caste, that like love jihad, what you witness on the part of Islam versus, the Hinduism. The same way, that upper caste people are, the girls are, that ultimately, they're taken for target. They are married. That leads to caste-based, the conflicts. Ultimately, court cases, that several murders in the name of, honor killings we hear because of that. The role of cop panchayats, kangaroo courts. In Tamil, you call katta panchayat. Hello. So all these things, that constitution talking about intercaste marriages, but in practice, you talk about, caste conflicts, where political parties also encouraging that sort of conflicts ultimately. So you come to know that this ultimately has got its own impact on law and order mechanism. You understand. So all these things, that centered around only when you understand caste system and associated social, that disability and oppression, suppression and taboos, and people got victimized because of that. Generally, you can understand the plight of, backward class movement or Dalit movements. Ladies and gentlemen, even Constitution has recognized that. That's why the reservation or protective discrimination is getting justified. We are talking about, of course, the very word we are talking about, that So the Dalit movement, that actually the word Dalit itself, that first appeared in Maharashtra. You might be aware, that the Mahatma of, that the Maharashtra, Jyotiba Phule, the founder of, that Satyasodhak Samaj, you might be aware. It is he, the popularized the term in Maharashtra called Dalit. Of course, that. So, but, as I said, the very subhuman treatment to the Dalits, that happening over centuries. It is a century-long oppression and suppression. That's why it's called historical recorrection. You just see, that the champion, of course, none other than, the Dr. Baba Sahib B.R. Ambedkar we are talking about. That way. And of course, that, but, that there, I'm going to finally, I'll be talking about the sociologists like Gail Wombeth, what happened, that the very Dalit movements, that started by, very B.R. Ambedkar. Today, you don't find that much vigor. They want transformation, but it's not happening letter and spread. It's getting diluted. That is what, according to Gail Wombeth, there's a sociologist, making, that a study over, Dalit movements. You will come to know finally. The very vigor with which, that it appeared during, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, you don't see. Even the political party BSP, that they lack clarity in terms of ideologies. Otherwise, it is, that personality centered party we are talking about. No, it's not happening. The people, they come in the name of Dalit, they form parties, they don't represent their people. Ultimately, they enter into political alliance, they take care of only their own, benefits. That benefits is not passed down to their own people. They are saying they are representing Dalits, but they are doing nothing for Dalits. That is what reality when we talk about political parties. But only during elections, they will be talking about to get media attention or whatever it may be, to create law and order mechanism. That is happening. Because there is, that understanding, with major political parties, they get, that ultimately showcase. It is very clear. It's happening. They do nothing for their own people. Even the reservation, it is that way. People who already became rich, upper caste Dalit, the upper class Dalit, they are benefiting more. The advantages because of the reservation. It's not passed down. It's not percolating down to the original needy people. That is the problem. Though constitution, of course, we have to appreciate parallel constitution. That is the reason we have seen, the Dalit, the today India is ruled by, that our great grandpa, of course, the Rashtrapati Ji belonging to Dalit community. That former president of India, K.R. Narayanan, belonging to Dalit. And one GMC Balayogi, we had, that Speaker of Lok Sabha. And also one, the Northeastern, you might be aware. So we are talking about, that a tribal also become, it is that way. It's all because of the, the conscious attempt by, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar for the plight of Dalit people. But today's political parties are, doing electoral politics. They are trying to benefit, capture the part. Even having captured the part, they lack clarity, and it is, that people centered. Because you might be what's happening in BSP, the Uttar Pradesh Mayawati, Kanshiram. You might be aware. Even Republican parties, what we are talking about, the today. And even as I said, the South India, the Dalit parties, that they are very keen in their own, the political experience. It's not benefiting their own people. It is capturing power or becoming MP or MLA, ultimately, the getting showcased. That's what is happening. That is the agenda. So it's very sorry state of affairs we are talking about. So they are ready to exploit this advantage, but it is not passed down to the original people. That is what reality we are talking about. You're going to see. So even today, you witness that the temple entry, 2 tumbler system, the South India, the tea shop. The Dalits were not allowed to, that wear chappals when it comes to dominant caste, the living areas. They were not allowed to use, that their the turban. What you talk about, the upper waist. And in Kerala, there was a caste called Pulayan. You would have heard about it. A forward caste Nambudiri Brahmin used to maintain some 17 feet distance. Because mere shadow casting on upper caste is said to be polluting. Pulayan caste versus Nambudiri Brahmin. So these are all the things. You just see the social distance. Even in Tanjore, Pradavannan, unseeables. You can't see them in the roadside. By seeing them, it becomes inauspicious. Unseeables. Such as even today you witness, of course, we are talking about, ladies and gentlemen, as I told you, even yesterday, backward class movement, even the Dalit leaders, how they are treated in their own respective political parties. Are you aware? Everybody cannot become like, Spectrum Raja, part of DMK. that to enjoy that much sophistication. You think about other Dalit leaders and other political parties, they'll be given second-hand treatment. I know, I've personally seen. I'm telling you, even once they indulge in corruption, it's not like, Raja, they will be protected. It's not happening. Because whatever may be, that all those, that the political leaders, that accused of corruption, then, that all cases cleared when it comes to, that non-Dalit people or upper caste people. But that's not happening with Dalit people. That is the thing you witness. Where you see political untouchability. Of course, they'll be saying, no party is untouchable when it comes to alliance. Hello, in your own party, your people are untouchable. I'm telling you. Whatever may be the political party. So that's the reality. Reality bites. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way we are talking about. Of course, that subhuman treatment, that over centuries, even today you see. Cutting across various political parties we are talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, let's understand the ground reality. Okay, so what is that? Gone are the days. 7 decades of India's independence. Still, as I said, that 2 months back, that Dalit councillor of particular, that local body, but was not allowed to sit, especially women, not allowed to sit on par with other members of that local body. And one Dalit Sarpanch got, that murdered. We're talking about, of course, that there came in the previous, Paparapatti, Kiripatti, Nattarmangalam, some cases, that where Dalit Sarpanches, that were allowed to dominate the scene. But it's a proxy rule. Ground reality, there'll be one dominant caste, that guy is proxy. That's all. We're talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, that's the reality I'm talking about. So there is a gap between what law says and the people's mentality. That's what I used to say. The middle class state is gone, but the mentality is not yet. We travel through Mercedes-Benz, that RD, BMW, but we never hesitate to bargain the platform, that for lemon or whatever maybe for 50 paise, with that old lady, selling, that some the vegetables. Middle class state is gone, but the mentality is not yet. All legislations, happened, but the people mindset, the Sabarimala case. There is a gap. That is why we say a law without social sanction is ineffective. Otherwise, caste has gone to the root level. Caste has got institutionalized. That is what the point. When you say you are a believer of a particular religion, you believe that caste system. Then you have to believe that supremacy of the Brahmins. Then ultimately there comes purity pollution notion. There will be oppression, suppression, the psychological disturbances. Yes, that is why the egalitarian principle. That is why the conversion happening. That is why the challenges. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way, that, so as Mahatma Gandhi's path, people should work towards the reform. Of course, for political reasons, electoral politics, that purpose, whether it is, that non-Dalit people, whether it is, Brahmins or the backward caste people, they are coming together to appeal in the name of, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, to appeal in front of, Dalit people for vote bank politics. Is it letter and spirit same? We're talking about, only for political gimmicks it's happening. So, that we have to understand ground reality. That's happening everywhere. Ladies and gentlemen, so inner revolt in Hindu social organization, they're talking about, it is inner revolt within the caste system. Dalits, that ultimately coming forward in the form of, Dalit movements. It is inner revolt from within. Because when you talk about Hindu social organization, of course, Hindu caste system as prescribed by Manusmriti, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, and also outcast Chandalas. So it is inner revolt. It is within Hindu social organization from within. So the very Dalit movement, you have to understand, they address the issues of cultural segregation. Even the lot of the poems written, they will live at the outskirts of village, and they are that illiterates, and they know only Mother Goddess, the local deity. And they met all those inhuman treatment. The poem goes in such a way. When I read that NCRT, there is that poem translation. How Dalits are. Something written in the past. How they are. Not only that, when you go to rural area, when you go and immediately ask water in a particular family, before giving water, the old lady, the grandma will ask you which caste you belong to. Otherwise, she will choose vessels accordingly. Otherwise, once you take water, she will sprinkle water on that. Because that's a taboo, vessel taboo. Interdining. That's why all political parties are conducting interdining. Samabandhi, Bojanam. Intercaste marriages. food taboo, vessel taboo, connubium taboo. We are talking about variety of taboos. Even today, you see. So the cultural segregation we are talking about. So political and economic exploitation. Only during that elections, they will be appealed in such a way. That so that that they can attract the votes of those. Maybe there will be one corrupt Dalit leader, that projecting himself as if a great personality. They believe and keep on breaching the trust. That's happening, and he will take care of his own that life, but not passing the benefits to the people. That's also happening. See the plight of the people, economic, the political and economic exploitation, and also the struggle for recognition as a that as fellow human beings. Got the point now? First, that they want to be recognized as a human being. I think you would have watched a movie, one Ranjit director in Tamil Nadu. That guy takes a lot of that movies centered around Dalit plight. Probably that will give you clear idea about but he's too much. And it's not speaking bad about him. That probably he is part of that community, got victimized. That's why he's speaking. But maybe for a non-Dalit, it looks like that guy is extreme, very negative like. But he is highlighting the very issue. The very movie came na Kala, the Rajinikanth movie. That's clear-cut example. It is that way, that guy is clear-cut example for that. You might be aware. So you please watch that movie. You will get more how the people are. Even there came one Madras one movie, I think. How the local politics, that you will understand. I'm suggesting you Madras by Ranjit, Kala by Ranjit. I'm not promoting Ranjit here, but you have to understand the case. In your free time, please watch. You will get more ideas. What's happening in India? Of course, Dalit movements. That they've got the tendency. That redemptive. It's ultimately. That they want to go back. That otherwise, they don't want all those. That the oppressive, suppressive measures. They should be given solution. They should. It's reformative. And also it is revolutionary. It is that all at the same time. They expect everything. That, but it's not possible. There is lopsided. In some areas it is revolutionary. Some areas it is reformative. Some areas it is a redemption. We are talking about free from all those the clutches of issues. So all at the same time happening. This is the trend you witness on the part of Dalit movements, ladies and gentlemen. So of course, when we talk about Dalit movements, the pre-independent scenario is different from post-independent. When we talk about Dalit movement, you can also refresh yourself, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, pre-independence, that prior to India's independence, of course, the Dalit movement broadly clubbed with backward class. That's what I said in the beginning. So the contributions of backward class movements, that are tremendous. You have to understand. When it comes to victimization, inhuman treatment, the common elements I said, inhuman treatment, they are against inhuman treatment, the anti-Brahmin stand, and working for self-respect otherwise. It is that way where you see commonality, among the backward class movements and Dalit movements, ladies and gentlemen. So the contributions of the backward caste or intermediate caste, that tremendous. We are talking about when it comes to the Dalit movements, broadly clubbed. The very Dalit movement broadly clubbed work together with backward class movements because untouchability was the common agenda. As I said, the sprinkling of water. See, you won't believe, that in my native village, my one great grandma, that she was a very religious lady. My own great grandma, I'm saying. I'm not, untouchable. I'm not belonging to Dalit community, but it's not revealing my identity. But you understand that's why. My own great grandma, that she's such a lady, very pious lady. She won't touch anyone. If anybody going and touching that lady, she will immediately go and take bath. She will scold everybody. But she's fantastic lady. But she's of that particular custom and tradition she practices. She says she's very pious. She won't touch anybody. What happens, right? Whenever I go, she will give food. That some sort of snacks for me. She's very comfortable. That lovable lady. She used to give everything to me. But I will eat. Once I finish eating, the place where I sat and eat, right? She will sprinkle water and clean. My own great grandma. My native village, I'm telling. I'm not belonging to that. It's not revealing the identity, but I'm telling you why. In the name of religion, the name of purity and pollution. See, it is that way. So, that it's deadly against, that the fundamental right or inherent potential or dignity of every individual. But that is the such scenario you witness even today in the rural areas. But you just think about, how upper caste Brahmin people will be doing the same, with lower caste people, or with, Dalits, or with non-Brahmins. You just imagine. Such is the notion, the custom-bound people, tradition-bound people, in the name of orthodoxy, in the name of purity and pollution. That's such that taboos you witness in your lifetime. You just imagine how it's going to be. That's very bad. Of course, that they've got their own justification. It's a conflicting of value system. Maybe we got exposed to the Western education, liberal polity, liberty, equality, fraternity, fundamental freedom, Bill of Rights. That your inherent potential, freedom of expression, everything. What you talk, but they'll be taking asylum in the name of tradition, custom. They will say, let me die with my practice. You be as you like. You can't change. It's a direct conflict between, value, Eastern value. It's not an Eastern value system. Their own value system versus modern value system they're talking about. It is almost cultural relativism. You have to practice. It's not evaluating that particular old lady from our modern standards. From modern standard, she's wrong. He's guilty. He's practicing untouchability. But but she says, that my own custom, who gave you authority to interfere in my own custom, in my own faith, my own tradition? I've got my own privacy, she will say. He has got right to protect, that even religious minorities, we give protection the same way. She may argue her own cause. That is what sociology is all about. Objectivity, value neutrality, cultural relativism. Matran thotattu malligayum manakkum. Even somebody else's garden's roses also will have fragrance. Ladies and gentlemen, ability to see, even good things in others, whatever may be. Ability to understand, have empathy. Ability to understand the feelings of, the victims. Otherwise, further you should be compassionate. That's important. On ethical grounds, it is getting justified. You be compassionate. That's more than law. That demands sensitivity on your part. We are talking about, ladies and gentlemen. So prior to India's independence, that untouchability was a common agenda where you see, that the Dalits, that Dalit movements, the backward class movements, they came together. Because, the common victims we are talking about, the anti-Brahmin agenda or inhuman treatment, oppression, suppression, everything, we are talking about. But whereas in the post-independence, the trend of the Dalit movements, that they gained their own distinct identity. Even, that national political parties, they were giving, the inferior treatment to the Dalit movements when they were part of the political national leadership, national political parties. So the moment after independence, that they had their own separate identity-based party. So because, that for political compulsion, number of seats, you have to recognize that separate treatment, whether it is BSP or Republican Party or Dalit Panther Party. Here, some parties in Tamil Nadu I'm talking about. So they gain distinct identity. That is the post-independence scenario. But that even at the beginning of, that after India's independence, that national political parties, they're given second-hand treatment to the Dalit, that leaders. That is what reality. That is what reality we are talking about. You understand. That's, that, ladies and gentlemen, let me take you to the next level. Yes, Dalit movements linked the backward class movements. That because they had their own link. When you talk about peasants movements, the farmers movement, you have to talk about, because, when we talk about, that backward class movement, otherwise, it's the constitution not talking about caste. Constitution itself, it says, it's backward classes movement. Otherwise, they are called OBCs, other backward classes, based on Mandal Commission recommendation, 27% reservation. We spoke already. Even the very first commission, backward class commission, of course, Kaka Kalelkar commission, that gave importance to caste as the criteria for social backwardness, that was rejected by the government of India. Only Mandal commission was accepted because that recognized social, educational, economic backwardness. Might be able 52% of Indian population backward class, that we are talking about. So the class, of course, when you talk about that, talks about economic status. That's why OBC, where we talk about creamy layer notion. That's different scenario. So when in that backward caste, that the upper backward caste people, that ultimately they participate in the political, that or administration, whatever may be the political administration or bureaucratic administration. But whereas the lower backward caste people, they join ultimately small and marginal farmers, agricultural laborers, the poor laborers. So you understand the connectivity. Even backward class movement had two divisions, where rich gets richer, poor gets poorer. That is the scenario. So you think about Dalit movements. Dalit movements, they had their own link with that lower backward caste, that the poor people, they work with them. Otherwise, the beginning backward class movements, their contribution definitely, that tremendously benefited the Dalit movements. That's a different scenario. So they work with backward class movement on the one hand, and also peasant movements, farmer movements on the other. So it is that way, that so Brahmins versus non-Brahmins. Brahmins versus non-Brahmins were called Shudras in one theory. So there, ultimately common victimization or anti-Brahminical standard. Otherwise, that inhuman treatment we are talking about, or hitherto oppression, suppression. So as long as you've got caste system, there'll be everything, that ultimately the victimization, common victimization we are talking about. Yes. So Dalits, of course, that belong to both lower caste and class. It is not only caste sense, it is also class sense. They belong to both lower caste and lower class. When you talk about, high, that higher, you talk about upper class, you talk about middle class, lower class we are talking about. In the caste system, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra you are talking about. So when you talk about, Dalit, they represent both, that lower caste and lower class. We're talking about it. In both sense, they are at the bottom. That says inhuman treatment. That says, that they're the century old, that oppression, suppression, victimization. We are talking about the inhuman treatment, the historical injustice. That's why the Constitution justifies protective discrimination, positive discrimination, even the reservation we are talking about. Dalits, when you talk about, who are all called Dalits? Probably those who are all oppressed and suppressed we are talking about. So the poor peasants, sharecroppers, they work on land, they get part of the produce. Poor peasants, we are talking about agricultural laborers. Otherwise, they have, marginal and small farmers live on subsistence. It's not commercialization of agriculture. The agricultural laborers, they don't have land. They just sell their, that otherwise, labor for the compensation of wages. And, all these things, you witness in the rural areas. Who are all called Dalits, the rural economy or rural areas. That's clear-cut example. It is not mere scheduled caste, the tribes alone. It is this way. Those who are all doing poor, all these jobs, poor peasants, sharecroppers, the agricultural laborers in the rural economy, they are called Dalits. Mostly they happen to be incorporating all those, people, including SC/STs we are talking about. In the urban economy, it's totally different. The bulk labor population, it's working class. In petty services, the informal workforce we are talking about, unorganized sector and occupation. Everywhere, the slums you witness there, all menial jobs, polluting occupations. Yes, in urban economy, you witness, the Dalits this way. So you understand when you talk about, that it's pre-independence, post-independence. Not only that, that Dalits in the rural setup, urban setup. You understand the difference? Those who are all oppressed and suppressed. I'm sorry. Those who are all oppressed and suppressed, they're called this way. Excuse me, it is that way we are talking about. Now it's time. Let me take you to the next level. Yes. Yes. As I said in the beginning, that a pioneer of Dalit movement, when you say it's prior to, that Dr. Ambedkar, who happened to be the hero of, depressed classes we are talking about, India's independence struggle, and even the post-independence struggle we are talking about. But, prior to that, that 1873, we are talking about in the Western India, especially Maharashtra, that Jyotiba Phule was the first to use that, term called Dalit. Mahatma, he was called Mahatma. Mahatma Gandhiji later, first Mahatma we are talking about, and through his that Satya Sodak Samaj, that ultimately a pioneer of Dalit movement. It is he, that to improve the condition of not only Shudras, but that Adi Sutras, that even Dravidar Kazhagam justifying this. According to Dravidar Kazhagam, or self-respect movement initiated by the Periyar of Dravidian South, he said, that Dravidians are, that native indigenous people. The Aryans came from, there are of course variety of theories you have. They came from polar region or Central Asia. Variety of theories are there. So of course they came through, that Khyber, Bolan passes. The history speaks that way. Even G.S. Gurye, Indian sociologist, that speaks that way. That the Aryans came and that they interacted with, the local native people, happen to be tribal people, indigenous people. The very, that ultimately the synthesis, Hinduism is born out of this synthesis, according to G.S. Gurye. What is that? G.S. Guri had gone to the extent of evaluating those native people in terms of the Aryan standards. He started saying the tribal people are backward Hindus. That is why G.S. Guri was criticized as ideological. That not sociological version, ideological version, because his views were dominated by Brahmanical influence. People started criticizing even Yemen Srinivas. Even Andre Betel's Sripuram village case study was accused that way. It's a Brahmanical view like that, influenced by Brahmins' views. Various case studies, the people were brought to Agraharam in front of Brahmins, upper caste Brahmins. They couldn't express their opinion. So otherwise, as told by Brahmins, he started registering. So Andre Betel was also criticized on that particular ground. You understand? So native indigenous people. So G.S. Gurye, Yemen Srinivas, Andre Betel, all were criticized because their views were influenced by upper caste Brahmins of their locality. It is that way. So whereas that the Mahatma Jyotipa Bhule, the Jyoti Rao Bhule, Jyotipa Bhule, all in one and same, who initiated Satya Sodak Samaj, a pioneer of Dalit movement we are talking about. He not only that worked for the Shudras, who happened to be non-Brahmins, and also Adi Sutra, the native people, indigenous people. So what happened, right? What is the ideology, common ideology? With the ideology, anti-Brahmanical ideology. He started rebuking, making mockery of, that the very belief system or Brahmin, recommended Smriti, Shrutis, everything. He had his own alternatives. Because, he wasn't in the mood of tolerating that inhuman treatment. We are talking about that way, ladies and gentlemen. So, that various Dalit movements, if you want to know, you can have examples like in different parts of India. Of course, you call Nam Shudra movement, of course, in Bengal, and Adi Hindu movement in Kanpur, of course, that you talk about, and Sri Narayana Dharma Paripalana movement, that of Kerala, fought for the cause of, Iravas. You might be aware. They are all very clear-cut examples. To have few in the beginning, we are going to elaborate in terms of phases. Various phases, phase, PHASE, they're talking about. So, Dalit movements, when you talk about, just have an idea. So, a pioneer of this Dalit movement, we talk about, of course, that Mahatma Jyotiba Phule, Satya Sodak Samaj, we are talking about the Western India. Ladies and gentlemen, and that you have to understand the leadership was from both within as well as from outside. If you want to know Dalit stalwarts, leaders. Of course, I said, that the very noun history, when you talk about, depressed classes, of course, the Dalits, you say Ambedkar. There are other people like, the Kumar Raja, MC Raja, very famous. There are hostels in his name also. MC Raja of, the depressed class foundation in Madras Presidency. The leaders, of course, that Saint Ayan Kali in Travancore, that you come to know the Guruvayur Satyagraha, that led to the temple entry. Even Mahatma Gandhi participated. Are you aware of this? Mahatma Gandhi accepted that untouchability is a shame on Hinduism. So he was in the mood of, that reform, that he appealed all people, to give humane treatment to, Dalit people. That is the reason he gave up dress. He started, that working in Dalit locality. You might be aware. He fought for the cause of, that reform mode. But Ambedkar took revolutionary mode. Ambedkar got frustrated, ultimately took all his people and embraced Buddhism, Mahar movement you call. That's different scenario. End is same, but paths are different. We are talking about, ladies and gentlemen. So Saint Ayan Kali in Trivangura, of course, that another leader we are talking about. So the Guruvayur Satyagraha led to temple entry. And not only that, it's ultimately opened the way for, the public places and Dalits and opening roads, that there will be great bath, there will be a tank, that all people have to take water. Dalit people were never allowed. All this restriction, the discrimination, social distance, social disability, the taboo. Who is in the receiving end? Oppressed people, suppressed people, Dalit people. So that happened. That is the past we are talking about. So opening up of public places for Dalits and opening up, that the roads also. Some roads were blocked. That when a dominant caste are residing in a particular locality, Dalit people cannot enter through that streets. And they have to take, separate, that encircling the area, they have to take the route. It is that way. Such is the discrimination, oppression, suppression we're talking about. And also the Ambedkar, that the very hero we are talking about, the first to mobilize Dalit. That the mass mobilization happened because of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, hailing from the same. And at all India level, that too, that's very important. Mobilization of Dalits at all India level. So, and not only that, that the very Indian Labour Party he started. Because, he felt, defeat, the twice through his, All India Scheduled Caste Federation, which started, that 1942. When he entered into, that elections fray, that he got defeated twice. So that's why, then he went for, that Indian Labour Party. I said, when I was talking about, that very peasants and farmer movements, that the credit goes to communists those days. The communists, that they contributed tremendously for India's, the peasants and farmers movement, that they fought for the plight, the plight of those farmers. Of course, that later became, extremist movement, that people war group, Naxalite operation. They had violent path. Otherwise, they went against government establishments. That's different scenario. But this communists had novel idea. What is that? They mixed, that they combined, that agricultural farmers with trade union movements. The same thing also happened here when we talk about, Dalit movements here. The same trend we are talking about. Yes, it is that way, we are talking about Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, the Indian Labour Party, that after, tasted the defeat, that in elections, twice through his All India Scheduled Caste Federation, which was started, that 1942, we are talking about. That, see, this All India Scheduled Caste Federation, which is said to be a torch bearer for the cause of Dalits, that was started by none other than, the hero of, Dalits, of course, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar we are talking about. See, that very Indian Labour Party, started by Ambedkar. Why? You might be aware, that attempted to mobilize the broader section of Indian society and not exclusively Dalit. So what happened, right? So that is what you have to understand the trend. All political parties should learn. When you start a party based on a particular caste, of course, you will be, maybe if you fantastically deliver the goods for your own caste people, the very caste leader I'm saying, probably you may get complete votes of the caste. What about other castes? You can't grow to the next level. So what is right in one point of time becomes wrong in another point of time. Your growth is limited, that's all. That's what I'm telling all caste-based parties. You can never grow beyond your caste vote bank politics. And if you want, even that's what Bal Thackeray, that Shiv Sena. I think, on the Netflix you would have watched that documentary. And he, he fought for the cause of Marathis. He was against all those Tamils, Hindi people, everybody. But later, he changed. He participated in the national mainstream, entered into alliance. Even Indira Gandhi came and met him. You might be aware. That changed his opinion. So, that any political party, maybe you begin with, that your identity politics, maybe language or caste. Of course, you can grow to a particular level. After that, you can't grow. That if you want to move to the next level, that demands your next avatar, next version 2.0. So you should be ready to face the challenges. You have to embrace people of other caste, other faith, religion, other languages, other regions. Then only you can grow. So Ambedkar practiced that model, that. So though he began with, that 1942, of course, All India Scheduled Caste Federation, that faced defeats, that defeat in the electoral politics twice. He started Indian Labour Party, the attempt to mobilize the broader section of Indian society. Not only, that not exclusively Dalits, he also appealed to the wider audience, including industrial workers, agricultural laborers. Do you get the idea? What communists did in the peasant movements, the same strategy we are talking about. You broad base your, that representation. You incorporate everybody. What is the commonality? Victimization, inhuman treatment, anti-Brahmanical stand ideology. You understand what I'm talking about? Ladies and gentlemen, it is this way. So the ideology, that what is that? You can ask me, Dalit movements, when you talk about what about ideology, say, yes, Sanskritization, anti-Brahmanism, reformism. In some areas, of course, Sanskritization. What is the point? Sanskritization, it is given, the very concept given by M.N. Srinivas. You might be aware. Sanskritization, westernization, vote bank politics. When you say Sanskritization, according to M.N. Srinivas, he witnessed in Mysore, lower caste people imitating the lifestyles of upper caste people. So that they will be given, that maybe the hope, that gives higher status to them. But it is not a structural change. It offers only cultural change. So, that when you talk about, cultural change, Sanskritization, westernization, clear-cut example. Whereas, modernization talks about structural change in terms of institutions because of British colonization in India. You understand? So, Sanskritization is a process where lower caste people imitating the lifestyles of upper caste people, maybe that gives some sort of cultural change. So, ideology. Some Dalit movements, practice this. They got influenced by neighborhood upper caste. And also anti-Brahmanism, that is a common element of all this, that against Brahmins, that extremes, North Pole, South Pole, in terms of the caste system, purity pollution notion. Maybe for political reasons people are coming, but it is not wholehearted mingling for political reason. His own opinion will be shared with his own family members when that, particular, Brahmin leader goes to his own family. Or Dalit leaders may be coming together, he has got his own reservation to mingle with upper caste people, he will be suspicious always because the history. It is not dividing people, it is reality. Let us be bridge, that at least I appreciate, the politics bringing people together, vote bank politics at least. Let's thank them. But in the urban areas, it's totally different. For economic reasons, it's totally different. We are talking about it is that way. We are talking about, the simmering discontent, the inherent contradictions we are talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, it is not wholehearted mingling we are talking about. So that stays anti-Brahmanism. The reformism, the tendency to reform everything. As I said, the Dalit party in Tamil Nadu, one slogan, Adangamaru, Attumiru, Timiriyedu, Tirupiyadi. Retaliatory mode we are talking about, that, and also, that, so that is the extreme, but at least reform, that all these structures, that the challenges should be done away with. The issues should get fixed, that reformatory. So ideology, when you talk about Dalit movements, different ideologies we encounter, like Sanskritization, anti-Brahmanism, reformism, that varies from place to place, time to time. Now we talk about Dalit movements are, on the one hand, it is getting diluted. On the other hand, the globalization of local issues or retaliatory politics on the other hand. Otherwise, that Dalit youths, that trying to elope with, that upper caste girls. And that leads to, that the caste-based conflict, otherwise caste murder and honor killings and law and order deterioration mechanism, caste conflict, and political leaders also, that trying to fish in the troubled water, you might be aware. These are all the things we are talking about. So the focus on early movements we are talking about. When you focus on the early movements, that especially the temple entry we are talking about, as the Guruvayuru, that temple entry movement, we are talking about. So restoration of, that self-respect. What about, the early Dalit movements, that their focus early, what they did, that they are very keen to enter into temple. There is, that in the South India, Tamil movie, also one movie, that there comes, that in the social network, Nandanar, Dalits were never allowed to enter into temple. Ultimately, that this Nandanar will give promise to all Dalit people. I will take you to temple. I will show you God. Ultimately, Nandi will be giving way to, that to darshan. That movie goes that way. So that's a clear cut black and white movie I'm talking about. In Tamil Nadu, of course, Tamil movie. The people from other states you may not be knowing. Nandanar, movie called Nandanar. It is that way, that. So the focus of early Dalit movements on temple entry and restoration of self-respect we're talking about. That there should not be inhuman treatment, that without affecting the dignity, inherent potential of human being, there should be a treatment, that restoration of self-respect and removal of civil disability, that disability, social distance, that untouchability practice and taboos all around. Vessel taboo, connubial taboo. The notion pakka food, kacha food, even the 2-tumbler system practice somewhere. You won't believe here, 7 decades old India, that when, that the long, I think, that there is a place in Tamil Nadu called Tirukoilur, nearby one place, Dabovanam, there is a hotel, that there is a small tiffin center. Because I was urging, I couldn't go to, that good hotel. I was, with family, I was driving car, I parked the car nearby, I entered the temple. Generally when you eat, that the vessels or, that the leaves will be removed by the very hotel staff. That particular hotel staff, that said, you have to carry your, that leaf and you have to put there. We are ready to do that. What you do in your home. But in the hotel, you don't clean your vessel once you take your food, right? But they say you take your, leaf and because, that it's run by one Brahmin, hotel. I scolded them. If you practice this untouchability, if you are hesitating, why do you run the shop? Come on, throw away. I scolded that guy. That is injustice. See, Aditi Devo Bhava, that when you are in hotel industry, the people coming and taking food, they're giving you back money. You are compensated. But if you're hesitating, that to touch that, saying that it is polluted, it's over. I don't know, that one day, that those guys will be taught lesson, I believe. by all these Dalit outfits or backward caste movements there. I don't know what's happening there. I personally seen, I scolded them. Where are you guys? Where are you living? It is because of you guys, the whole Indian society is, blamed. I scolded them, because I personally seen still people with that, nostalgic, traditional mentality, that come on, you do something else. You want to earn money, you want that, lower caste people's money, but that you are not ready to, do that social transaction. How come it is justified? So I personally seen, that the people are still with that, that they should be thrown away. They are out of the system, that it is that way what I'm talking about. They will be taught lesson. That is what happening. That is why the conflict. That is why people like, Ranjit, director, coming and making movies. I felt that way. I realized that way. Oh, this is why Ranjit like directors coming to the fold in the cinema industry. That though it was looking, extremism. See, fortunately, it is that, all these things we are talking about. So removal of, civil disabilities. And, hope, that I think you also heard some news here. When our Rashtrapati ji, that President Ramnath Govind, when he visited that Pushkar temple, the Brahma temple, where the ill treatment. Are you aware of this? And even that came in news. But of course, the temple authority said no, nothing happened. It became news. And also, the Puri Jagannath temple, the very ill treatment he met. And later, they came, the press meet, everything, nothing happened. Yeah, that's okay. We know what happened. You may be president of India, but you are Dalit. That notion, that the practice, the system we are talking about. Oh my God, that, see, even you need everywhere Periyars, everywhere Sri Narayana Guru, everywhere Jyotiba Phule, everywhere Ambedkars to change these people. The mindset, that not recognizing, the inherent potential of the human being, that we are talking about it is that way. So removal of, that civic disabilities we are talking about. So reservation in Dalits, for Dalits and political, that all early Dalit movements, their focus was on this we are talking about. That way we are talking about, that as long as whoever maybe you are, whatever may be the high echelons or elitism you have, if you don't recognize, that another human being and his or her own potential, you are no more human. Be kind to every kind. But we have gone to the next level, the world of ethics, environmental ethics, not only mankind. Be kind to every kind, not only mankind, Jiva Karunya principle. But still, within humanity, you see the discrimination. That is why, that all these movements are justified. We are talking about, ladies and gentlemen. So, the very attempt to bring reforms in princely states we are talking about. Of course, the early focus on temple entry, restoration of self-respect, removal of civic disabilities, and reservation for Dalits in political and government institutions. All these things ultimately, to some extent, diluted also when people became beneficiary. There you see, for social status, they are going for religious conversion. Either they become Christian, they go to church on Sunday, or become Muslim. But in the original, that records, that guy will be, that maintaining same, that the SC or ST standard to avail reservation benefits. Are you aware of this? That double standards also we witness. Because once, that you get converted to, that Christianity, you will be treated as BC, backward caste. You can't enjoy that reservation meant for scheduled caste. So all these things are happening. So this double standards we witness also. We hear parallelly all these things we are talking about, ladies and gentlemen. So reservation for Dalit, recently UP came with, forced religious conversion, that the ban on forced religious conversion. When Jayalalitha was Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, she introduced this ordinance, but she lost election. So later she withdrew. There was three ordinances when Jayalalitha was Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu. When she was, nearing electoral alliance with BJP, to appease BJP for political understanding alliance, she came up with, that ban on slaughterhouses and ban on forced religious conversion. Are you aware of this? They're talking about, that it is that way, that ban on, forced religious conversion. Ultimately, what happened, right? It affected the minorities. Ultimately, she lost elections. She withdrew ordinances. Ordinance is nothing but emergency law, you might be aware. Promulgation of ordinance at the central level, state level, Article 123, 213. Hope you are aware. Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, it's that way. Let me take you to the next level. Yes. So, attempt to bring reforms in Indian princely states. That happened also. We are talking about prior to B.R. Ambedkar. That especially Kolhapur Maharaja. That we are talking about Shahuji Maharaj. He got inspired by Satyasodhak Samaj founder, of course, Mahatma Jyotiba Phule. Shahuji Maharaj, a non-Brahmin king, of course, Maharaj Kolhapur, and C.R. Reddy in Mysore. You might be aware, the Mysore Maharaja gave, that 1921 itself reservation for backward castes. Are you aware of this? We are talking about, and Ramakrishnan Pillai in Travancore. We are talking Travancore, that you might be aware. It is that way. The princely states, that so attempt to bring reforms happen. Even India's princely states, during colonial era, you might be aware. It's prior to the efforts of, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. We are talking about, ladies and gentlemen. So, but post-independence period, that hitherto we spoke about, pre-independence period. The post-independence period, you call otherwise post-Ambedkar period. The socio-cultural, economic, and political reforms, what we are talking about, that became priority. Socio-cultural, economic, and political reforms we are talking about. So, where the assertion of Dalits in many forms and phases. That's what I'm talking about. The slogan of political party in Tamil Nadu, Dalit Party, Adangamaru, Attumiru, Timiriyedu, Tirupiedu. In Tamil, I am saying Adangamaru, refuse to be controlled, refuse to obey. Attumiru, trespass, Timiriyedu, rebellious, Tirupiyedi, retaliate, strike back. So the complete violation of law and order. Why? The tendency, the assertion. That I think, parallelly I should say, the LGBT community, you would have heard transgenders, that one of the transgenders, they're speaking in such a way in front of the media, that if I go to public, if I say I'm a transgender, people should say, so what? That should be the awareness among the people, that you might be aware. I think, there is one Netflix also, Pava Kadaigal, something, that came about, that one transgender. You might be aware. You would have watched how they are in the receiving end in the society, the ill treatment. So it's not gender justice. We are living in the world now. We have to talk about the plight of LGBT community, transgender justice. So the transgender says, if I go and speak in front of public, if I am a transgender, people say, so what? So that should be the, that awareness on the part of the people. The day will come. That's the hope on the part of the transgender. The same way, it is not, Dalits nowadays afraid of saying that, I belong to SC, I belong to ST, I am a Dalit guy. It's not like that. They're very, yes, I'm Dalit, so what? That assertion is there. Otherwise, they are very open, that they cherish that identity so that they can take part. They want to preserve that identity also. So that assertion on the part of Dalits, and not only that, the extremism, retaliation, as I say. Not only that, they participate in the international forum. That ultimately they go, you people are talking about racism, apartheid regime. Hello, you come to India, where we are practicing casteism, which is worse than racism. These Dalit leaders internationalizing the local issue, globalizing the local issue. Otherwise, Dalit leaders aligning with international institutions, it's called global alliance. Even Dalit Panther Party, it's inspiration from the Black Panther movement of USA. Are you aware? Fortunately, this assertion, not only that, you also see, like, you got industrial establishments, corporate body, FICCI, that you got, Dickey to take care of, Dalit people. There are Dalit entrepreneurs also. So now it is the post-independence period, that it is thanks to, that various socio-cultural, economic and political reforms. And, that not only Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, leaders like, K.R. Narayanan, the former president of India, now, that our current, that Rashtrapati Ji, His Excellency Ramnath, Govind, we are talking about so many leaders like that. Ultimately, that you find now. So it is that way. So assertion, it's Dalit assertion we are talking about, that they utilize all these opportunities, they become source of inspiration in their own respective locality. It's of course, it's initiated in the modern era by B.R. Ambedkar, apart from those leaders I'm talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, this is post-independence, the period, what we witness, socio-cultural, economic, political forms, as well as the assertion of Dalits in many forms and phases. Maybe political participation, they become MLAs, MPs, participate in the local bodies, you might be aware, and also take part in, that bureaucratic administration, and they become civil servants, you might be aware. And, that the government also through commissions, and also, that the reservation mechanisms, that, a lot of PhD holders, so many things happening, that political awareness, they seize the opportunity, you might be aware. It works that way. Ladies and gentlemen, yes, let me take you to the next level. Yes. So, these Dalit movements, when we talk about in India, you have to understand that happen in different phases. When we talk about different phases, that first let's talk about the phase of Republican Party of India and Mahar movement. Of course, the Ambedkar era we are talking about. the Republican Party of India. Now, it's under different leaders, someone Advale, whatever maybe, the different names we hear. But of course, you have to understand origin. It's where the All India Scheduled Caste Federation, got defeated. That Ambedkar's, that 1942, that the very year he, that brought this entity. But, that got defeated in the elections twice, 1946 and 1951. After that, the very federation got dissolved by Ambedkar. So that's why, I said at the beginning, later, that when you appeal only your own caste people, your growth gets limited. So later, he understood that notion. He broadened that cause, the common victimization, anti-Brahmanical stand, the inhuman treatment meted out to non-Brahmins. That way, he started, even trade union, that trade unions were roped in. The peasant communities were roped in. So that happened through, that Labour Party we spoke, ladies and gentlemen, whatever may be. So Republican Party of India formed in 1956. So this talks about, that especially the plight of depressed classes. Otherwise, the amelioration of, socio-economic conditions. It's making some ease, from the problems ultimately of Dalits and poor classes. See the broadened version. So that, that they capture the political power, that became very popular in UP as well as Maharashtra, especially 1950s, 60s. We're talking about, ladies and gentlemen. It's the face of Republican Party. It is that way, because, All India, the Scheduled Caste Federation, having defeated, the elections, the twice got dissolved. There came the birth of Republican Party of India. It's not only for Dalits, even for poor classes, ladies and gentlemen. But I said, when we talk about, that very Dalits, they are at the bottom of caste system as well as classes. They are lower caste and lower class people. You just see the inhuman treatment then. Oppression, suppression, injustice. That is why it is getting justified. Ladies and gentlemen, let me take you to the next level. What is that? Yes. So the face of Republican Party, that and Mahar movement, we are continuing the same face. What is Mahar movement? I told you already, that the very B.R. Ambedkar, of course, Mahar, that first of all, it is untouchable caste in Maharashtra. Might be aware. Anti-Brahmanical in ideology, because of the, inhuman treatment meted out to them, that ultimately the ideology, then reforming the caste. Because, they are not that in favor of reforming the caste, but they took the stand, that anti-Brahmanical stand, because, that they were oppressed and suppressed by the upper caste. That notion, ultimately what happened, so, the very Mahar movement advocated, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar advocated the rejection of the caste, even as, that self-respect movement, Dravidar Kazhagam, of course, that very E.V. Ramasamy Nayakar, that the rejection of old religion, rejection of God. According to, that Ramasamy Nayakar called Periyar in the South India, there is no God. கடவுள் இல்லை, கடவுள் இல்லவே இல்லை, கடவுளை கற்பித்தவன் காட்டு மிராண்டி. One who preached God happened to be a barbarian. That is the notion they took. They attacked God. They became atheist. As long as you believe in religion, you will subscribing the Hinduism, you will be subscribing the view of Hindu social organization, of course, caste system. Then you will talk about, Brahmin supremacy. Then you have to get victimized, inhuman treatment. So that's why, he gone to that extent. He attacked that faith of religion, the root cause. And rather, rationalization called Pagutarivu. But of course, there are political criticism. That's different scenario. But if you don't have, Periyar, if you don't have, if we didn't have, the Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, Jyotiba Phule, Narayana Guru, what would have happened to India? Only God knows. It is otherwise, what you speak about the China, the communist regime, all round human rights violations, same thing could have happened. Why not? So that is what every movement is responsible for generating, a particular kind of leader. As you say, that the Indo-Gangetic plain, that the peasant movement, created leaders like Charan Singh and Ram Manohar Logia. The same way, different parts, of India, different social movements, created different, that kind of leaders whose effective contribution took India, from, from traditional model to modern model. From, that faith model to, that rationalization model. From primordial, that misconception or mystic living to, that modern scientific living. We are talking about. That rationalization, scientific temperament should be justified all round. But of course, that there are differences. Let's agree to disagree. It's not, but that it should be, there should be decency when you try to express your opinion, whoever may be. It's not going to the extent, whoever may be. There comes, those days it is survival mechanism. But whatever today, you got opportunities everywhere. Na? If one door closes, you got 1,000 doors waiting to open, right? When that's the scenario, why do you, if you feel very smart within this room, come on, change the room. Go everywhere, different parts of the world, prove you are no more under the clutches of anybody, under the dictates of anybody. When such is the, that opportunities everywhere, why do you, it is not staying, that it's not closing the room and keep on, that ultimately crying, the room is dark, room is dark. Come on, break the door, go away, see the light. That is the notion we are talking about, that so that, all these conflicts very natural in the beginning. Of course, that comes for every thesis, there is antithesis, then synthesis we are talking about. As long as, but, it is not all Brahmin people are practicing this, in untouchability. There are human, the very human tendency. I have seen, that in my friend's family, very fantastic people, very humane approach. Not, that it is not generalization like, that all Brahmins practicing untouchability. That's wrong. Then you lack objectivity. The good and bad people are everywhere. Practice objectivity. Don't get biased. I'm talking about. So, it is no particular caste can claim that, it is superior or inferior, or it is good caste or a bad caste. No religion the same way can say I'm a good religion. Why competition? Then you are religious. I want you to enter into the domain of spiritualism, where you see you are part of the greater entity, where you recognize the different paths leading to same destination. Then no competition. Otherwise, let me speak this way: whether caste or religion, that for great people, whether the caste or religion or language or region or ethnicity or race is a tool for connecting people. So you find common ground, you connect people. For small men, all these things, entities, what I'm talking about, maybe you talk about, identities, whether caste, religion, race, ethnicity, region, all are tools for dividing people, polarizing people. I'm asking you a question: are you great personality, or that a bad personality? It is that way. It's up to you. But there is always good and bad in you. But you try, that you give priority to good than bad. Of course, But it is totally different. When great is bad. That good is the enemy of the great. Parallelly, let me tell you one thing. Because that you have to become great. Good is the enemy of great. To be a great, you have to understand these nuances. The civilized, the world as one family, Vasudeva Kudambaham, accommodating everybody, accepting everybody. That's different notion we are talking about. But what happened in the past? That's totally different scenario. The injustice, oppression, suppression. That's why all these movements are getting justified. You just think from the angle of the people got, that victimized. It's not, looking at things from privileged caste. This privileged caste. Then the sensitivity, empathy that we have to practice, that otherwise Jiva Karunya, as Valalar said, Vadiya Pairai Kandabodellam Vadini. Whenever I see a plant is dying, as I feel as if I am dying. That's Jiva Karunya principle we're talking about. It is that way, ladies and gentlemen. So the caste system is anti-democratic and anti-human. We're talking about anti-democratic because that democracy ruled by all. The rejection of a section of population, that you get isolated. In democracy, if you reject people, you will get isolated. Rejection leads to isolation. In democracy, you have to include everybody. Social inclusion. We're talking not social exclusion. When you say democratic, you take everybody on board. So the very caste system, if you are practicing, you are anti-democratic and anti-human because you don't recognize the fellow human beings. It is inhuman treatment. You outrightly reject, that inherent potential on the part of every human being. You affect the modesty. If that is what, there is a saying, that according to Swami Vivekananda, கண்ணுக்கு கண் கடவுளாக தெரியும் உனது சக மனிதர்களையே நீ வணங்காவிட்டால் கண்ணுக்கு தெரியாத கல்லில் இருக்கும் கடவுளை நீ வணங்குவதை நான் எப்படி ஏற்றுக்கொள்வது? See, when you don't recognize there is a human, there is a God in your own fellow human, how come I can believe that, that you worship the God as if you believe in God, in stone, in idol worship? You don't respect your own fellow human beings. How come I can believe that you are respecting God, the Almighty, who happen to be invisible? Yes. So when you believe that, when you get into the world of spiritualism, you will understand you are part of the greater God. There is a God in you, and you will also respect God in everybody. That is the theory. God is everywhere, omnipresent, omnipotent. God is in you, God is in everybody, in every caste, every religion. That's spiritualism. We are all same. Because you know that when you recognize there is a God in you, you will also respect God in somebody else. There comes, no inhuman treatment we are talking about. That way, so anti-human. So what happened, right? The caste system, the moment you practice, you are said to be anti-democratic, anti-human. And people are talking about anti-Indian statement. I'm saying anti-human. Oh my God. Eh? It is that way. So followers of, Ambedkar opted for Buddhism. They embraced, Mahar movement, then Hinduism. Why? Because, that the Hinduism believed, has caste system, which justifies, that the supremacy of the Brahmins, which is anti-democratic, anti-human, all those stuffs. So of course, that the frustrated, followers of Ambedkar, with Ambedkar, embrace Buddhism. That's called Mahar movement. You might be aware. So after all, Mahar, untouchable caste in Maharashtra, it is the ideology is, anti-Brahmanical. Then, it is not reforming the caste. That got frustrated. Within Hinduism, you can't reform. So he supposed that, that revolutionary mode, then Gandhian reformative mode. You might be aware. We are talking about. It is German. But it's that way. So, what is the very first phase is over. Second phase, it's about Dalit Panther. We are talking about. It's the very Dalit Panther we are talking about. It is because of influence of Marxism, Ambedkarism, and Negro literature. It has got influence of United States of America. Because in United States of America, that you might be aware, the Black Panther movement of blacks got influenced by that. Ultimately, you are talking about here Dalit Panther in India. And also, that it's borrowed from there. What is that? In 1972, Dalit intellectuals founded this, that Dalit Panther in Maharashtra. The party we are talking about. So different phases of, Dalit movements, that through this way. So why? But in this Dalit Panther, you see the Marxism. What is Marxism? After all, the political goal of the Marxism is establishment of classless communist society, where everything is for everyone. It's otherwise called egalitarian society. Even Mahatma Gandhi dreamt of egalitarian society. But Mahatma Gandhi's path, ahimsa, satyagraha. But whereas, that socialistic pattern, of course, that more or less similar, but the point is ahimsa path, that's a highlight. But Marxist path is, that revolutionary path where violence is not ruled out. So ahimsa, himsa. That is why the materialism never, there is a criticism against materialism of Marxism. Materialism will never materialize. Otherwise, egalitarian society is utopian ideology. Because, the classless communist society, even today it is a dream. The egalitarian society, even today it is a dream. Maybe, that it is in economic sense, Marxism. But whereas, the casteism, we are talking about here social sense. The Karl Marx, that is the point we are talking about. That Karl Marx spoke in terms of, that the ownership over economic resources, the struggle, the exploitation, contradiction between haves and have-nots. But here, whereas in Indian system, the casteism, of course, the social backwardness. It is, that the exploitation of the upper caste over lower caste we are talking about. Social distance, social disability, purity pollution notion, caste system. But Marxism, that based on class system, the Indian caste system is totally different. We are talking about. Even, that you will come to know Charvakas. Charvakas preached the very Marxism, that it's prior to, that the Karl Marx. A sect called Charvakas in India. Of course, that the seed of Charvakas, it's almost similar to Marxism. But what Marxism is based on class system, but Charvakas preached, that based on caste system in India. The very, the anti, that supremacy. Otherwise, that anti-Brahmin. Otherwise, that against the supremacy of the Brahmin, the Charvakas we are talking about. That became unpopular. It could not, Ajivikas, that Charvakas, you would have heard about that. They're talking about. It's that way. So, ladies and gentlemen, so influence of Marxism and Ambedkarism. Ambedkarism, of course, that what is the point? Ultimately, that anti-Brahmanical ideology. And Negro literature, the discrimination of all kinds based on complexion. The Negro, the Negro literature, the apartheid, social South Africa, what happened? That social segregation we are talking about. Even recently, the United States of America, the Trump got trumped. Of course, the Democratic Party came to power, that in place of Republican Party of, Trumpism. You might be aware the outspokenness on the part of Trump. You might be aware. So, Negro literature, racism, of course. It is, so the casteism is a kind of racism in India, according to Dalit leaders. When they try to internalize the local issue, globalize the casteism. You might be aware. So, 1972, Dalit intellectuals founded the Dalit Panther in Maharashtra. So, revolutionary anti-caste organization. They're talking about Dalit Panther. It is revolutionary. It is not a gradual transformation they were for. Radical. When you talk about revolution where violence is not ruled out. That way, that, of course, Namdeo Dasal and J.V. Pawar, he also wrote book on this Dalit Panther movement. You might be aware. So, so what happened, they, that he said, they, in the practice, in the beginning, they followed violent means also, because whenever you talk about revolution, which is radical, even the, Mao Zedong, Mao says, the revolution, the violence is the midwife of revolution. Violence is the midwife of revolution. Are you aware? So in the world of revolution, violence is not ruled out. That is what radical in nature. So Namdeo Dasal, J.V. Pawar, initially, that this revolutionary anti-caste organization followed violent means. So the same trend, what we are witnessing today among Dalit political parties, that retaliatory mode. They are in retaliatory mode. They're talking about, that it is that way. So what is that? That this Dalit Panther movement got inspired because, it's borrowed from Black Panther movement of, that the blacks in the United States of America. Do you understand? We are talking about the phase of, Dalit Panther also. That not only that. So the very purpose of this Dalit Panther movement, of course, we are talking about creating Dalit consciousness. The consciousness. Mahatma Gandhi expected, that the Hindu people to do away with untouchability consciousness. You embrace them. They are children of God, Arijans, Mahatma Gandhi said. But here, this Dalit Panther movement says, we are all victims of this upper caste domination, especially the Brahmins, anti-Brahminical stand. You should have your own consciousness. As Tamil leaders speaking, that who have got sympathy towards, that the LTTE, that cause Tamila, Unarvugul, that it is that appeal, that whole Tamilians, have that consciousness of Tamil consciousness. May be good within Tamil Nadu, but when we talk about all India, it's totally different. You have that Indian consciousness, unity and diversity consciousness, cultural pluralism consciousness. Otherwise, that goes against national integration. There you are anti-Indian then. We are talking about. So it is generating Dalit consciousness. That that once you are conscious about it, because how that consciousness comes. Because of the exploitation, the century-old exploitation, because of the victimization, because of the inhuman treatment meted out to you. So attacked, so ultimately this Dalit Panther, of course, that attacked Hindu caste system and through debates and discussions, that in homes, offices, public places, everywhere. It has become a talk of the town, as you say. The consciousness ultimately, that you started understanding the discrimination differences. You became, the sensitive to that, discrimination, oppression, suppression everywhere. Ladies and gentlemen, it's that way. So, that it's inhuman treatment at the end of the day. That's what we are talking about. So, emerged to fill the vacuum in, this Dalit Panther movement, that why they came into existence. When you got, that All India, that of a Scheduled Caste Federation that got dissolved because having met, that defeat twice. And also, that the very Republican Party and Mahar movement came. Why this Dalit Panther movement? If you're asking, it emerged to fill the vacuum in Dalit politics, especially in Maharashtra. To fill the vacuum, that ultimately, and after, especially why? Because there were several factions when you talk about Republican Party generated there. And it's very natural, the Republican Party got weakened, that vacuum, that usurped by Dalit Panther, we are talking about, and spread of ideas through Renaissance in Marathi literature. Of course, we are talking about Marumalarchi in Tamil, Renaissance. You would have heard about socio-religious reform movements, otherwise called classical period, Renaissance period. In Tamil, it's called Marumalarchi. We are talking about. So, spread of ideas through Renaissance, that we are talking about. Reformation. the classical reformation, that especially through Marathi literature and arts we are talking about. So it is always, that even Dravidian movements, utilize the celluloid world, that even Kalanjar Karunanidhi, even CNA Annadurai, that Arinjar Anna, called founder of DMK, he, that acted in movies, dramas, he penned down dramas, used to write, that eloquent speeches, very famous speeches. Even he spoke in parliament, the Arinjar Anna, very famous, you might be aware. And also, the Kalanjar Karunanidhi, who penned down, the script writing for movies. And, it is that way, that the very movement, that got survived, sustained long because of, that the spreading of ideas, that even the tabloids, newspapers, Morasuli, all those, even today, all DMK, that men will be reading that, that the dailies, every political party has got its own. But it's very famous, that when you talk about Tambiki, they will write, to my younger brother, like, that started with, even the Vidudalai, that the Kudiyarasu, Vidudalai, Dravidar Kazhagam we are talking about. So the use of media, the celluloid world, even they later they employed, MGR, Jayalalitha, even SSR sometimes. Now Rajinikanth thinking of, that entering into politics. Kamal Hassan already into. So in South India, especially Tamil Nadu, which is still under the clutches of, that the filmdom. Nothing wrong. Anybody can enter into politics. But, as long as you meet. So the use of, MGR we are talking about. And of course, there came, difference of opinion between Karunanidhi and MGR that ultimately paved way for another movement out of the parent organization DMK, AIADMK. You might be aware. Then Jayalalitha, all those. It is that way we are talking about. So the use of media done by, Dravidar Kazhagam, Dravidian parties, the same way, Dalit Panther utilized Renaissance, Marathi literature, arts we are talking about. How do you reach people? How do you make people aware of your ideas, the political manifestos? What's your agenda? What's your plan for, that bringing change, make difference in the administration? How do you communicate? Today, the role of social media is very crucial. You might be understanding it. Is that way, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about. Yes, the phase, the first phase is over. Now, the second phase is over. First phase, of course, Republican Party, Mahar movement. Second phase, we spoke about Dalit Panther movement. Now, the third phase we are talking about. Dalit movements you see in different phases. Yes, the phase of, Bahujan Samaj Party we are talking about. Kanshiram, Mayawati, the famous leaders. Of course, the BSP, Uttar Pradesh, you might be aware. I heard she used to call singularly all IAS officer. Hey, come on, dictate. She wrote up to 4 mains she wrote, I hear. Are you aware of this? That Mayawati, of course, well known. So the first major political party to freed the Dalit mobilization from mainstream politics. Because I said the national parties, they gave second-hand treatment to all these Dalit parties. They weren't treated well. They were given few seats. How the treatment would be. Because, the same mentality. Only platform changes. Mentality, same old mentality. We are talking about. So, this is the first attempt. Of course, we are talking about Bahujan Samajwadi Party. Of course, the Samaj Party, especially Kanshiram, later Mayawati, we are talking about. First major political party to free Dalit mobilization from mainstream politics. We are talking about. Mainstream political parties. So, what happened, right? This BSP gave voice to voiceless millions of Dalits. Ultimately, they came to that power that way. But what happened? Lack of clarity and also leadership-centric party. It became dictatorship. It is that way. I heard, that a corrupt lady, how she was, that all the stories. No need of talking about it. It is, that the people exploiting this, suppressed class for their own political expedience. They are doing nothing for the people. At the end of the day, same exploitation. Only, that the identity differs. Nomenclature changes. The leaders change, but exploitation never changes. The vicious circle of poverty never changes. That is what we are. It's making mockery of the whole Dalit, the belief we are talking about then. So gave voice to the voiceless millions of Dalits on the national stage. We hear, and also the two problems. Gail Womit also made statement. The two problems of BSP. What is the problem? If you ask me, lack of clear strategy and leader-centric party. If it is going to be, that dictatorial style, it can't survive long. It should be democratic in functioning. That. So there is a saying, Idipara illa, Yemara mannan, Kedupar illanum kedum. When you don't have, the team to, that team of ministers to criticize, advise, constructively at least, that Nobody can, destroy you, king. You will destroy yourself. That is the saying. So that is what the problem on the part of, dictatorship, totalitarian, that aristocratic, despotic, tyrannical. We talk about, the same thing, that Mayawati was criticized on that grounds. You might be aware the way with which how she dealt, the even civil servants. We heard those stories how she will be dealing, and there'll be, we heard. I don't know. You have to check with your locality because that when one Mercedes Benz BMW showroom or Mercedes Benz guy showroom, that there was a dispute. She asked, that ultimately that guy vacated from that Uttar Pradesh. We hear those, the stories. The corruption is everywhere. In India, religion, there is one common religion connecting everybody. That's corruption. Corruption is the religion. People say cricket is the religion. If you enter into politics, you will understand corruption is the common religion in India. Where people come, that it is that way. Oh my God, the corruption in kind otherwise. Nepotism, favoritism, cronyism, of course. Yes. We talk about, the face of Bahujan Samaj Party. We are talking about, the next phase. Of course, what is that? That the Dalit Movement said the BSP has no clear ideology in program and functioning of the party. That she is the very famous sociologist. That you are going to see a lot of her contributions. That, and sole thrust is on breaking the caste system. They are for breaking the caste system. Once they enter into state power, that's good. But is it benefiting the very Dalit people? Is it percolating down to the Dalit masses? Or, that you become lavish, lead aristocratic style. You hear that, that elephant parks, built everywhere. And also, how the followers, put garland of, that 1,000 rupees currencies, 2,000 rupees currencies on the birthday of, lavish birthday celebrated by Mayawati. You might be aware. But that way we are talking about, that. So it's not taking care of the original Aam Aadmi of Dalit people. So the leaders of Dalit, the parties, they are enjoying in the name of, that the plight of Dalit people. That's what happening. That's the worry. So Kanshiram, that who happened to be founder of, that BSP, according to him, that he recognized two groups in Indian society. The very founder of BSP, that and political mentor of this Mayawati, you might be aware, Kanshiram, that the leader, of course. The two groups in Indian society he recognized, that scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, OBCs, other backward classes, and religious minorities on the one hand, one group. Brahmins, Kayasthas, Baniyas, Rajputs, and traditional upper caste on the other. Two different groups in India. It is polarization of, that polarized groups in India. According to Kanshiram, the founder of BSP, we are talking about SCs, STs, OBCs, religious minorities, oppressed, suppressed, because common victimization, that anti-Brahminical stand, that you might be aware, that are common oppression, suppression, victims of century-old oppression, suppression. But on the other hand, the dominating caste, of course, Brahmins, the other dominating caste, Kayasthas, Baniyas, Rajputs, the tradition, this is according to, that may vary from place to place. We don't know. You just check. It's not blaming anybody. This is someone's observation. You just come to know. That it's not Sampath's observation, right? You understand, right? So you come to know, ladies and gentlemen. And also we talk about, that the final phase, of course, that of Dalit movements. We are talking about the post-reservation Sanskritization movement. We are talking about. So what happened right through, your political participation, socio-economic, that growth happened thanks to reservation measure, protective discrimination through constitutional efforts. We are talking about positive discrimination. We moved from, that it's not only equality. We started addressing equity, principle of equity. That is a practice now. That's what ethics, ethical administration we are talking about. So we evolved to that level. Now we are almost ruling the country like knowledge-based society. Not free from challenges, of course, we are talking about. So Sanskritization ceased to exist among, Dalits. So it is not, lower caste people imitating the lifestyles of upper caste people so that upper caste will be recognizing with respect. I don't want your respect. Let me have my own way. Because we talk about the trend of Dalit assertion. Let me be, it's not living somebody else's life. Let me live my own life. Let me cherish my tradition. That has become, motto of, Dalit people. They started, that preserving their own identity. Asserting, otherwise retaliatory mode, I said. Globalization of local issues. So it's no more Sanskritization. Why should I copy you? Let me have my own way. It's that way. When, that when Sanskritization expects you have to give up beat eating, that the beef eating practice, that they are very happy to eat, beef, pork, everything. So it is that way. Things are going like that. So Sanskritization ceased to exist. No more. Because the Dalits, they started asserting themselves. We are talking about. As a pious Hindu, you should not eat, that beef. That is the expectation on the part of, upper caste people. But lower caste people are eating, the beef. Non-Brahmins, the Dalits, even non-Brahmins, all are not, meat eating people. There are vegetarians too. So it is that way. Ultimately, that food taboo, vessel taboo, there comes ultimately the question. So there we also witness irony. On the one hand, government talking about, that ban on slaughterhouses. On the other hand, that the beef export, that was supported lavishly by government of India. Oh my God, that we are talking that way also. How double standards we are. We practice, that now it's a different scenario. But beyond that, please practice environmental ethics. If not now, over the days, you become conscious. It's not by force. But you become conscious over the days, you please, that try to, that at least that in the beginning rationalize your meat eating practice. Maybe over the days, you will completely give up for the sake of, that. It is that way. So you will ensure natural balance. You don't make all animals you see as endangered or extinct. Then finally you will start eating human being. Cannibalism. Are you heading towards it? But whatever, maybe it should be your own decision. It's not by somebody else's force. It should be natural. It's by your sensitivity, consciousness. So Sanskritization ceased to exist among Dalits because they are in the mode of asserting themselves. Retaliation, globalization of local Dalit phenomena, you might be aware. So the post-reservation, how it happened, how the confidence came, how this strength came, it's because of the policies of protective discrimination, reservation, the benefits out of reservation, and also the equal status, that by, the political parties are so, even the educated people started accommodating equally. Because if you go to gated community, people of all castes, all religions, that living together. What is needed? You should have money, that's all. So no more caste. In urban areas, class replaces caste. But of course, this is for, that your neighborhood. But that when you go deeper, the marital contract may not be there. For all rituals, religious functions, ceremonies, that there comes, that the social discrimination. That's different scenario. At least the macro level you eradicated, but micro level still it is persisting. Of course, that assimilation happened, but integration to happen, it will take long time. That is what the thing we are talking about. So reservation, equal status, and also, that the political mobilization, because, that the bargaining political power, the taking part in political activities, becoming MLAs, MPs, ultimately, that local bodies, you might be aware, even administration, civil servants, they become civil servants, you might be aware. And also, I said corporate world, it's in place of Fiki, they've got their own Dicky, and Dalit entrepreneurs too. I'm talking about all this, one Sarad Babu I hear, one guy from, the Chennai Food King, that he's IAM graduate, and he became, model entrepreneur. And he's from Dalit community. Are you aware of this? We are talking about all these things. So revival of Dalit consciousness, that happened. So instead of feeling, that inferior or bad or worried, frustrated, you started feeling proud. Like, that the Ranjit, the director Ranjit, that Tamil movie director Kala, Madras, you would have heard about that. And he's also, director for Kabali, a famous movie, you might be aware. So, that he's in mode, assertion mode. All his movies, will portray that assertion, that clear-cut example. We are talking about why the benefits ultimately they are talking about. So political participation is the key, and also, that access to education and benefits out of, that the reservation, everything gave confidence. Sanskritization, it's not copying the upper caste people. Let me live my own way. It's not living somebody else's life. Be your own. That thing came in ultimately, that. So all these things are preservation of identity otherwise, or having Dalit consciousness we are talking about. So, we discuss, that the very Dalit movements in different phases. The same way we are talking about, that the very Dalit movements, that in terms of, new socio-religious movements we are talking about. So it's, that this and all, that you get pre-independence, post-independence, how it was in rural area, urban area, the pre-Ambedkar or post-Ambedkar. We spoke at length, that after, that all those reservation, protective discrimination, how the Dalit assertion and preservation of identity, Dalit consciousness, we spoke at length. Not only that, in 1970s also there came new wave of, socio-religious movements came ultimately. They had, that wider secular appeal. Even the very constitution, what you are talking about, Indian constitution, is a secular constitution. But it is not irreligious. Where even the Bombay High Court judgment, when there was on Hindutva plank, BJP MPs, that won. Ultimately, that the case came to Bombay High Court. Even Ram Jethmalani, the famous, you might be aware, advocate used to mention that ultimately, the judgment came. India is a secular country, but it is not irreligious state, where reason is more than religion. Reason, rationalization, science, the logic, cause and effect. You understand? Reason is more than religion. This R1 is more than R2. What is that R1? Reason. Reason is more than religion. Reason, scientific temperament, logical connectivity, rationalization. It is not irreligious state. Of course, India is a secular nation, but the point is the religion got reduced to the private affairs of an individual, because we don't have official religion, state religion, like Pakistan or like Bangladesh. Got the idea? Na? They are all called theistic nations. You understand? So that's a statement. So, but Indian secularism is totally different from Western secularism. Indian secularism, where we have, that we protect minorities. But Western secularism, similar treatment for all religions. Anything you can speak out of your, that freedom of expression, that's not blasphemous there. But whatever you speak in India, if it affects, that goes against, minority religions, it's blasphemous. Anything what you speak, the name of fundamental rights, that the freedom of expression, when it affects, that you got reasonable restriction clause. You understand? That should not become hate speeches or, inside communal violence, affect law and order. You have to be very careful about it. So that's different. So we protect, that minorities. Article 29, 30, the minority institution. When you talk about minorities in India based on language and religion, according to the constitution, you might be aware. So the wider secular appeal, what we are talking about, that became part and parcel of neo-socio-religious reform movements, happened in 1970s. We are talking about, ladies and gentlemen. So open to, that non-Dalits. It's not only exclusively the Dalit membership we are talking, it became broad-based. It also attracted non-Dalits and members of other communities. All these, 1970s movements we are talking about, ladies and gentlemen. So not pure Dalit movements per se. All these neo-socio-religious movements, that not pure Dalit movements, that per se we are talking about. So they attracted, the so-called depressed sections in a big way. We are talking a huge, that impact, that they had. We are talking about recruitment, not restricted to Dalit alone. It became broad-based. It incorporated people from other communities too. We are talking about. So it's otherwise called alternative cult, sect. That we are in a religion can be divided into two: sect, Hinduism, Shaivism, Vaishnavism; Islam, Shia, Sunni; Buddhism, Hinayana, Mahayana; Jainism, Shvetambara, Dihambara. Christianity, Protestant ethic, you talk about, Roman Catholic, you talk that way. They call sect, divided into sect. The cult, of course, cult is almost like, sect, but in cult there will be a leadership we are talking about. So it is, there are cult, denomination, sect. This is all religious entities. You got alternative mechanisms like cult and sect-based movements like Radha Swami Satsang. And there are such a, recently that guy arrested, you might be aware. And he had one, that a girl as a daughter, and people speak bad about that. And he had his own parallel administration, own currency. How the followers, protested arrest of that guy. And when he was accused of all those, that criminal activities, and he's in jail now. And there are such a, and that guy, MSG, Messenger of God. You would have seen that guy. And Asaram Bapu, and one Sarathi in Odisha, and Premananda here, and Nityananda abscond now. Oh my God. See, there is a saying, that either you say, that there is God, no problem. There is no God, not at all a problem. It's up to you. Let's agree to disagree. We respect your opinion. But anyone says, I am the God, that's a problem. That's a problem we are talking about. You can believe a person who is saying there is no God. You can also believe a person who says, there is God. But you can never believe, we are suspicious about a people who say, I'm the God. I'm the God. Oh my God. Okay, so see, oh my God. So it is that way. So Radha Swami Satsang and Dera Sacha, that became, that you might be, how guys are, misleading the whole masses, exploiting the innocence, ignorance of the people. That is why, though India is a secular constitution, still you're talking about, the religious exploitation we are talking about. It's that way. So, ladies and gentlemen, but you use, that you need guru. Periyur Thunai Kodal, in Tamil it's called. You need, that scholastic people, eminent people, you need mentors, no doubt. But they are selfless people. You have to recognize them. That if they got, you have to identify whether they have motive or not. Otherwise, Meipurul can't be there. You learn from everything from anybody, but that you use, that your so-called, that IQ, EQ, everything. That works in that way. You evaluate, you experience, then you rate. It is not, that it's simply forwarding anybody's experience as if yours. You undergo, all religions talking about, you undergo that experience. As long as you are very conscious, nobody can exploit you. You don't want, that the intermediaries, you don't want brokers, the name of religion. That straight away, it's ultimate God. Of course, you need guru as long as they are selfless people. It's not rejecting everybody, it's not suspecting everybody. So, gunam nadi, kutramum nadi, avatrul migai nadi mikkakodan. You mingle with everybody, you judge, you evaluate, then you go ahead. That the moment you become sensitive, you just throw away, nothing wrong. You got choices ultimately. That getikaram pulugu ettunalu. How long people can cheat you? As long as you are in the state of ignorance, innocence, they will cheat you. Otherwise, emotional blackmail, emotional exploitation, that demands your awareness, your consciousness. It is that way, the scientific temperament. Question everything, nothing wrong in that. At the same time, that it is not suspecting everybody. You need mentors, you need gurus, the selfless gurus. You have to, not with agenda, not with plan, plot, or machination. You're talking about, ladies and gentlemen, it is that way, that. So hope the people will be aware of that, that it's getting repeated every time, everywhere you are talking about. So religious exploitation. So Dalit movements, that amorphous in shape. It is shapeless otherwise, but with common elements. What is that common element? Several Dalit movements we are talking about, in different regions, that they are different in different shapes we are talking about. Shapeless. There is no uniformity in terms of, shape, but you find the common current, that connecting common current. What is that? Common ground, the common elements. Quest for treatment. Saying, Manidanai Manidanaga par. Treat every human being. That's what, be kind to every kind. But we say, not only mankind. That's environmental ethics we are talking about. Love everybody. Love leads to acceptance. That leads to peace. Then only prosperity. So, it's not tolerating anybody. Who asked you to tolerate? The toleration comes only when there is difference of opinion. If you don't accept, you enter into accommodation. There you talk about toleration. I want you to, that accept as they are. Accept anybody that demands love. A fundamental, so it's not liking. Like means exploitation. Love. Don't like people, love people. If you love a rose, you will water it. If you like a people, you will exploit them. If you like a rose, you will exploit. You will plug it. If you love a rose, you will water it. So love everybody. That's a basic human being. The love that is equivalent to your mother, the umbilical cord connectivity. The mother poured in love to the same love I'm talking about. If you ask me what is love, ladies and gentlemen, so that that the love leads to acceptance, acceptance leads to peace, peace leads to prosperity, prosperity leads to happiness of everybody. That's the way. That begins with, as Dr. Kalam put it, your dharma, the righteousness, that in you, that leads to global peace. You might be aware. So what is that? So various Dalit movements, of course, that shapeless but common element, human treatment, anti-Brahmanical stand we are talking about. Otherwise, that response to oppression, the century-old oppression or suppression we are talking about. The different places, that Madhya Pradesh we talk about, the Satnami movement of Chamars, and Adharmi movement of, the Punjab we are talking about. Adharmi movement, even today, the 15% of, the population, that the scheduled caste population, the subscriber of this view, you might be aware, that the Adharmi we are talking about, that. So the Mahar movement of Maharashtra, that. untouchable caste, the Ambedkar, that persuaded them. It is that way. An anti-Brahmin movement in South India, you're talking about. Of course, the Dravidar Kazhagam, self-respect movement by E.V. Ramasamy Naikar, you might be aware. So all ADMK, DMK, what you're talking about today in Tamil Nadu, the DMK and ADMK. And then came, MDMK, Temu, Tika, and KKKK, whatever may be, all ABCDs came out of this parental organization. That's called Dravidar Kazhagam by E.V. Ramasamy Naikar, called Periyar. Then the founder of DMK, you might be aware, CNA Annadurai, Arinjar Anna. You might be aware, all these things we are talking about, ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. Yes, Dalit movements in India, that now we have to touch, some sociologists, and I'll be devoting separately also, that sociologists and the topic, see, according to, the Gopal Garu and Selvam, the sociologists, and their opinion about Dalit movements. Dalit movements are cultural movements. Their quest is always for ritual-less, that they are not ready to subscribe that, caste system based, the rituals, purity and pollution rituals, all those, that something, part of, orthodoxy. So anti-orthodoxy, that of a Brahmin community or upper caste, and they denounce, that unegalitarian God. When the God himself accepts this, that caste system, I don't want God. So that is the notion, the cultural movements. That's what, E.V. Ramasamy Naikar of Dravidar Kazhagam in the South self-respect movement, did that way. When God himself accepts these inhuman practices, then he is not God. They've gone to that extent. They attack the root cause. If God justifies this, the Hindu social organization, the basic refusal to the inherent human potential in the name of caste system is, then there is no God. They've gone to that extent. They attacked that. You understand? No? So anti-orthodox. Now, even the Buddhism, Jainism came that way. So ritual-less. You understand that way. There is no God, first of all, in Buddhism and Jainism. Tirthangara, the monasteries. But, there are some people, they worship. Mahayana Buddhism worshipping Buddha as God. You might be aware. It is, that's what misinterpretation, the evolution. People forget the basic root cause. So denounce, so ultimately denounce unegalitarian God. If the God himself is unegalitarian, we don't want God. That's the notion. So Gopal Garu and Selvam talking about Dalit movements, that are cultural movements, their quest for ritual-less and anti-orthodox, that society. And they denounce that Dalit movements, that as cultural movements, denounce the unegalitarian God we are talking about, ladies and gentlemen. So Gail Ombed, of course, that this lady, a sociologist, you might be aware, she made her the opinion about, BSP also, the lack of clarity and leadership-centric party, central party, you might be aware. So centric party. So Gail Ombed says, Dalit movements have class elements. Most of the Dalits are economically depressed as well, because in the beginning itself I said, when you say Dalit, they are low caste as well as low class. Low caste in the caste hierarchy, low class when you talk about, the economic status we are talking about. So Dalit movements have class elements also. Most of the Dalits are economically depressed as well. So the caste ideology is used only to justify the class inequalities. They are taking asylum in the social hierarchy of the caste. But what is the reason? The oppression, suppression, the inhuman treatment. Because once they get money, you might be aware. Once they get, even the rural area, the affluent Dalit caste, they are respected. They'll be entering into politics. Otherwise, they've got access and decent life. They will be respected. And the people who lack that economic resources, ultimately, they that you don't respect me because I am Dalit. If I got money, you will respect me. That notion is still working there in the rural area. So caste ideology is used to only justify the class inequality. So ultimately, recognition of the class elements, part of this, that Dalit movements. After all, Dalit movements, based on caste system, the Hindu social organization, you might be aware. We are talking about. So Fernandez, according to Fernandez, another sociologist, Dalit movements form a secular movement, form of secular movement influenced by modern ideas and Western political ideology. This thing we cited even for backward class movements. The Western education, liberal polity, that ultimately, that people started recognizing liberty, equality, fraternity. They started questioning the supremacy of orthodoxy or Brahmins, or maybe, or upper caste, or high echelons of society. I said, even there is a movie song, MGR movie, ஆயிரத்தில் ஒருவன், I think. ஏன் என்ற கேள்வி இங்கு கேட்காமல் வாழ்க்கை இல்லை. I think that's old song. You may not be knowing MGR song. MGR will be, he does this way. That if you know the South Indian actor, the founder of ADMK party, So that's very famous here. ஏன், you have to question everything. நான் என்ற எண்ணம் கொண்ட மனிதன் வாழ்ந்ததில்லை. That you should not have ego. If you think only me, you are gone. So those are all highly philosophical. People penned down those. That's why they reached masses. They spread political parties' ideas. He became that mass hero, protagonist. You might be aware. So it is that way. So here we are talking about that they use celluloid world to spread messages to the people. But here it talks about the very backward class movement, even Dalit movements we are talking about. Even why Ambedkar? Because of his exposure to the Western education. The people got exposed, that Western modern education, the rationalization, even that ultimately what happened, they started incorporating those the elements there, the secular. They made that even Indian constitution is secular, where we talk about the Constituent Assembly, how they spoke, the different arguments, debates. Given the nature of that Indian society, custom bound, tradition bound by misconception, superstition, mysticism, and associated ignorance, innocence of people, illiteracy, poverty, exploitation. That way we are talking about, ladies and gentlemen. So influenced by modern ideas and Western political ideology we are talking about. So ultimately it is because of the influence of modern ideas, the rationalization, scientific temperament, the secular outlook of the world, the Western political ideology. Of course we talk about the Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. The notion of liberty, equality, fraternity, the byproduct of French Revolution we're talking about. Even we brought part of the preamble of Indian Constitution. It is a borrowed feature from different constitutions in the world. That's why it is lengthiest constitution we have. More than 400 articles, 25 parts, 12 schedules we are talking about, right? Why? The lengthiest and written constitution. Well, of course it's with that incorporated amendment provision, Article 360. Ready to that throw away obsolete, outdated laws. We are talking about that way because nothing is permanent. Every the change is permanent otherwise. Ladies and gentlemen, it's that way. Let's move. Dalit movements, the form of secular movement. Why? Because of the exposure to modern ideas and Western political ideology. So that even the literature, as I said, the Dravidian movement, how they utilize the newspaper, periodicals, celluloid world. Even in Tamil Nadu, there is a party, Tamil Nadu, the DMK. There is a TV called Sun News TV. Sun TV. The Sun TV is official, that a channel of, that of course DMK party. You might be aware. Even they've got other channels also, Kalanja TV. It is that way. Every political party, even ADMK has Jaya TV. But now after Jayalalitha, Sasikala, that it's all changing. And every time, the media, the political party will be buying media. The corrupt media we are talking about. The politicization of media, otherwise. That even national parties, they've got, their own link. That's why, the news, what we watch, that no news is pure news, objective news. Everything. News is no more news. It's called views. It's called bias. It's called opinionated. If you want to understand the truth, you have to watch at least 6 to 7 channels. Whom should I believe? Oh my God. You are told so. That's all. You have to understand. You are told so. History is nothing but history of few individuals. Those individuals, who are all they? As you are told. Later you hate history. And that too, it is, see, the gender injustice, history, not history. Of course, that as Dravidian, the parties utilized, tabloids, the same way, celluloid world, we are talking about, Dalit movements utilized, Dalit literature. As we spoke, that Renaissance, the same way, Marathi literature is the same way we are talking about, successfully brought to the fore of the deeper social malaise of untouchability and clearly debunks Chaturvarna, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, Chatur, 4. That char you call na, 1, 2, 3, char, chatur varna, 4 varna literature. That it is debunking. It is ultimately so the use of Dalit Sahitya, Dalit literature we are talking. And also the massive mobilization. Even, what happened that we recently witnessed, one guy, I said, the University of Hyderabad, that a research scholar, I believe, 2016, that happened, the suicide of Rohit Vemula. How it happened? A lot of student movements also, the one Kannaya in JNU, that all those things, the people with liberal ideology going against establishment, even one, the Patel, the Patidar we are talking about, the bargaining power, depress the very backward classes, that otherwise, the Dalits coming forward. You understand. So recently, the massive mobilization came in response to that guy. Of course, one guy committed suicide in the college campus. Are you aware? Hostel itself. The suicide, Rohit Vemula, belonging to Dalit. It's that way we are talking about, that. So Dalit movements, of course, that are more aspirational and vocal today than ever before. And also they utilize, the social media to the core to spread messages, so that to protect their interests or to promote their interests. We're talking about the use of technology. As I said, Ficky, in place of Ficky, they've got Dicky. You got, that Dalit entrepreneurs too. We're talking about that way. They try to utilize all those government measures for their own upliftment. We are talking about. And also not only that, that several trends we are discussing when we talk about, according to Professor Surinder Jodhka, who has written a book called Caste in 2014. We are talking about linking with globalization. So Dalit Alliance, that here he spoke about, the Dalit Alliance at the global levels. As I said, globalization of local issues. Participating in social summit in Durban, South Africa, that you people are talking about racism, come to India where it is casteism, which is worse than racism. These Dalit leaders, that internationalize, that local issue. So the Dalit movements are no longer inward looking. They started looking outward. What is that? They started embracing the global standards. So they do not rely on Sanskritization alone. It's not simply aping the upper caste. It is not copying. It is having originality and moving forward and assertive and being assertive and going for striking back, retaliation. And internationalizing the local issues. This is a trend we are talking about. So this is according to Professor, that Surinder Jodhka we are talking about. And also, that you might be aware, the very Satya Sodak Samaj of the Western India, that we are talking about. That especially the Western India, Jyotipa Phule, and also Sri Narayana Dharma Paripalana movement, that fought for the cause of Izhavas, Kerala. And self-respect movement of, that the very E.V. Ramasamy Naikar Periyar, otherwise called Dravidar Kazhagam. So all these, that the backward, that the class movements also contributed tremendously towards, the Dalit, that Dalit as well as, other backward class movements. You might be aware. We are talking about their roles are very crucial because, as I said, in the system, Chaturvarna, Brahmana, all, that non-Brahmins were called as Shudras. So it has become common victimization. The inhuman treatment. So anti-Brahmanical stand, the common ideology. So it is that way. So where you see the peasant movement, women movement, that the trade unions even, and the backward class movement, Dalit movements, all coming under, that similar platform, to fight against, that the common enemy. What is that? Anti-orthodoxy, anti-Brahmin, anti-inhuman treatment. Understand that way. It is that way. It's prior to that. The hero B.R. Ambedkar. We are talking about Jyotiba Phule, Mahatma Jyotiba Phule, the Maharashtra. Of course, the Kerala Izhava movement. Of course, Dravidian. That the movement. That the founder E.V.R. Ramasamy Naikar or Periyar. The mother of all Dravidian parties in Tamil Nadu today. Ladies and gentlemen, it's that way we are talking about, right? And that, sir, you can how the questions are asked. This question came. Different forms of Dalit assertion. A question came in 2016, sociology. I'm just taking, just for the sake, one question. There are several questions. You just go through previous questions. Different forms of Dalit assertion. So what we spoke in different phases. What we discussed, how the pre-independence, post-independence, how it is rural area, urban area. In different, that the phases we spoke in terms of Republican Party, Mahar movement, in terms of Dalit Panther Party, in terms of Bahujan Samajwadi Party, in terms of, the end of Sanskritization and the political empowerment. We spoke at different lengths. And how sociologists, that viewed. It's not only that. Let me also take you to some more, the sociologists, that who made, that their own mark on this, Dalit movements. According to Duncan, you heard about Duncan Mitchell. This is, the different, I believe. So, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, who formed, the Indian Labour Party. That the Republican Party also he started. Why? Because that the All India, the Scheduled Caste Federation failed, that got dissolved. Why? It's because that a defeat twice, that the very federation got defeated in the election. That's why the Republican Party. Then later he embraced Mahar movement. He also started the Indian Labour Party. You might be aware. This is according to Duncan. The Ambedkar got convinced the wider support base than the scheduled caste was essential. As I told you, every caste, if you start political party based on mere caste, you will grow. You will end up only within that caste. You can never go beyond that. If you want to grow, you have to embrace. That is what I'm saying. If you want to move to the next level, that demands your next avatar. That demands your next level of tools. You should be ready to update yourself. If you're not ready to update yourself, you will be thrown away. Because change is permanent, whoever may be. You have to understand this, ladies and gentlemen. That is why Karl Marx, மாறாதது மாற்றம் ஒன்றுதான். Change is permanent. Nothing is permanent, otherwise negativity. Ladies and gentlemen, so what happened, right? According to Duncan, he embarked on more class-like strategy. That more than caste, that class-like strategy. They start oppression, suppression. Because you have to go beyond caste. If you restrict yourself to caste, your growth is limited. So they started embracing the support of other social base. Otherwise, you have to connect with other people, the backward class movement, other, the poor marginalized sections of the society. That is why when you say Dalit, it's an umbrella term, common term, a broad term encompassing all those who are oppressed, suppressed, broken, including women, child labor, transgender, even minorities, differently abled people. Why not? That way, it's a broad term we are talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, it's that way. So, according to Dalit Movement, that the BSP, that this particular point we already discussed part of that BSP phase, that when we were talking about BSP, which lacks, that no clear ideology, and also, that a leadership, the centered party, we were talking about. So, their sole thrust were on breaking the caste system and acquiring the state power alone, not to reform the caste system, not to benefit the Dalit poor. Otherwise, they themselves indulged in corruption. You might be knowing very well what's happening in UP under Mayawati, what happened in the past. So this is according to Dalit Moment's study. It's not Sampath speaking. According to the sociological study we are talking about, why that the BSP is struggling there. So that the Gopal Garu and Selvam, we spoke this point also. I'm summarizing once again what sociologists. Dalit movements are cultural movements because their quest is always against rituals. Otherwise, they are in favor, that against orthodoxy on the part of upper caste, or orthodoxy on the part of the society. They denounce even the God, the unegalitarian God. If the God, as a God, if you are going to subscribe the caste system, if you are going to accept this hierarchy based on purity pollution, if you are going to, tolerate this inhuman treatment, we don't want you. That is the stand. So we spoke already this point. You might be aware. I'm summarizing once again. Ladies and gentlemen, let me take you. So this is, the Dalit Movement once again. So the Dalit movements, that have class elements. That's what we spoke. They take asylum in the name of caste system, Dalit movement. But real reason, that the class. Because, class inequality ultimately. So most of the Dalits are economically depressed as well. That's what I said when we were talking about in the beginning. When you say Dalit, they are in the bottom of the caste hierarchy and bottom of the class hierarchy as well. Lower caste and lower class we are talking about, and also those who are oppressed and suppressed, they, that the century old, the inhuman treatment for which they got exposed, we are talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, that way. So it's not only that the caste ideology is used only to justify the class inequalities we are talking about. This is according to that lady, the Dalit Movement, the famous sociologist, who made her exclusive, the contribution for social movements. You might be aware, a force to reckon with the world of social movement. Then, according to Fernandez, another sociologist, Dalit movements, they are form of secular movement. We spoke already. Why that secular outlook, they came for that movement? Because the liberal ideology, exposure to the Western education and modern ideas. The same thing we spoke in the backward class movement also. Western education, liberal polity, scientific temperament. That ultimately, the exposure to French Revolution, liberty, equality, fraternity, we are talking about. The show me proof attitude, scientific temperament, the science, the cause and effect relationship, logical connectivity, rationalization. That way, it is not simply believing everything. You started questioning the supremacy of everyone. Why? that ultimately, there comes another question, $1 million question, why not? When people are afraid of why should I? Don't say why me, say try me. Come on. Eh? Eh? Courage is virtue. Eh? Courage is virtue. Knowledge is virtue. Courage is virtue. The knowledge gives you self-confidence. You can stand on your own. That is the courage. It is that way, that the fear is death otherwise. That's what Swami Vivekananda says. The courage, that it's not why. The another question, $1 million question, why not? There comes another question. Why not? Don't say why, why me? Don't say, say, try me. Come on, try me. It is that way, ladies and gentlemen. So that demands courage. How the courage you will get? Only when you are based on principle. Only when you are strong in terms of principles, the courage comes in. Ultimately, ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. Satan can't preach Vedas. Satan can't preach. Satan can't preach diktat. We are talking about, ladies and gentlemen. So the form of secular movement, that according to Fernandez, influenced by modern ideas. The outlook came, the Western political ideology. Not only that, this particular point we already spoke. That I'm summarizing once again what sociologists' opinion on Dalit movements. We spoke in CAST 2014. Of course, the professor Surinder Jodhka, how the globalization of local Dalit issues, and also it's no longer inward looking, the Dalit movements. They don't rely on Sankatization. It's not aping the upper caste. They've got their own Dalit assertion, retaliation, striking back, and globalization and global alliance we are talking about. It is that way, ladies and gentlemen. We discussed this point already. You might be aware. Ladies and gentlemen, that's fantastic. Of course, hitherto we spoke about, that Dalit movements, the very contribution from backward class movements, how it is responsible for enriching the cause of Dalit movement. Because the similar common ground we are talking about, the inhuman treatment, the century-old oppression, suppression, an anti-Brahmanical stand, an anti-orthodoxy, an anti-democratic, the stand by upper caste, all these things we are talking about, the commonality. And that how the pre-independence, post-independence, how in the rural area, urban area, the Dalit movement saw. First of all, what is Dalit? Its meaning is that broken, otherwise, that oppressed, suppressed people are called Dalits. It's not mere SC/ST people alone, for your kind information. So, and also, that is the reason, that the role of backward class movements, that in supporting Dalit movements. Of course, hero, no doubt, that Dr. B.R. Ambedkar we are talking about. And prior to that, Western India, Jyotiba Phule, Satyasodak Samaj, that, of course, the founder of Dravidian Party, E.V. Ramasamy Naicker, and Sri Narayana Dharma Paripalana movement, Ezhava caste, Kerala, of course, Sri Narayana Guru. We spoke already in the backward class movements, might be aware. And also, that different phases, that the Republican Party and Mahar movement phase, and also Dalit Panther Party phase, and also, the Bahujan Samaj Party, of course, Kanshira Mayawati, UP, that particular phase. And finally, the end of Sanskritization and political empowerment phase, we discussed at length. And several trends, we discussed with the support of, several sociologists. Hope you would have understood, that hope I would have made your time worthwhile, I believe, ladies and gentlemen. And you can also, that refer, the more through materials like, that IGNO materials, NCRTs, Ghanshyam Shah, we are talking about. When I talk about Ghanshyam Shah, probably, that, let me, of course, that this particular thing, you might be aware. I thought of telling, that few points here also. The role of, the middle class especially, the Dalit movements, that why they came to prominence. Just now we spoke, the Professor Surinder Singh, that because of the secular outlook, everything, access to modern education. That too from middle class Dalits. The upper class Dalit, were responsible. It's because, that there came identity and they started bargaining for reservation in government jobs and political position. I'm talking about. And some more point I thought of adding with this, that what is the point? So, that the collective actions not geared regional level sustained movements. See, that is what, the harsh part. It is not, of course, we talk about, Dalit movements in different parts of India. It's not getting consolidated. There is no unity. Why? What is the reason? Because as downtrodden caste, they have to come together. They have to go for collective bargaining. But that's not happening because they are not ready to tolerate their own, that subcaste of their own, downtrodden communities. As I said in Tamil Nadu, the competition, the conflict between PLPR, Parayar, Pallar, And as it's happening in other subcasts, in other upper, the backward classes also, you might be aware. That there is, strict, the conflict between Iyyars and Iyengars. Are you aware of it? Even Iyengar, are you Y or V? Vadagalai, Thingalai, we are talking about. Brahmins, Samartha Brahmins, people are talking about. Even Brahmins, when I interact with them, some of my friends used to say, hey, he's also Brahmin. No, he would say, no, Sampath, they are Prohits. They are good for nothing. That's why they are Prohits. We are all educated, affluent Brahmins. So that discrimination is there. So though you are talking about caste, at the end of the day, it is called class. I'm asking the question ultimately. They all caste-based leaders. Hello, you start political party. Will you marry your daughter or son to a poor person of your caste? You will never do that. He will get that the spouse for his own son and daughter only from that upper class of that particular caste. That's what happening. So at the end of the day, it is not caste, it is class. The urban areas, it is highly obvious. It is that way. Then, so there comes Gail Wombet's stand. People are taking that asylum in caste. It's at the end of the day, it is class inequalities. We are talking about. That's what Gail Wombet, the statement. So of course, that how the influence of modernity and Marxism, that the changed outlook of that very Dalit movements. We spoke at length. I think the post-Ambedkar Dalit movement was ironically only that in the end, a movement of Dalits challenging some of the deepest aspects of that oppression and exploitation, but failing to show the way for transformation. So they're not transformative. They want to throw away the caste order. That's all. It's not for transformation. So that's right. This is according to Gail Wombet. Not only that, the Dalit movements, that they act as pressure groups. You might be aware within the mainstream political parties. That as a symbolic or instrumental in protesting. That, and their evolutionary edge, that is got blunted. They're not as sharp as they were in the past. That it's not that much vigorous. This is according to the sociologist's opinion. Their strategies, tactics, alliances, even goals, that seem to be very disputed. I see even the political parties in Tamil Nadu, Dalit parties, that they are not for the cause of Dalit people. I know. You go and interact, and as a case study, you will come to know. Because that they want that only that top class upper caste as spouse. Then there comes political corruption by accepting some 100 crores. One Dalit party I hear sold itself to another political party. That and all the things happening. Are you aware of it? So it's ultimately that what happened, right? That guy politically a bonded labor to another political party. That's all. He's no more representing, the interest of the Dalits. He's representing his own family interest, exploitative interest. That we come to know, ladies and gentlemen. So, the affluent political parties entering into bond agreement with Dalit parties, there will be diversity so that they can appeal the voting behavior of the masses cutting across various sectors, various, the sections of the people. The permanent bond is established by bribing, the Dalit political parties. It's happening. Dalit leaders also, that succumb to that particular machination, that because the political expedience at the end of the day. So that's what I'm talking about, that. So Gail Wombet, that said, they don't have, the way for the transformation, only for voting, only for political plank, and that election, selection, collection, election, selection, collection. Ultimately, corruption we are talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that's that of course Ganashyam Shah, that I touched that summary. Even when we talk about Dalit movements, especially Aad Dharmis, we are talking about that Aad Dharmis, of course, centered around the Punjab. You might be aware. It's a movement started in 1920s. This is additional information I thought of sharing with you. They are the follower of that the original religion, and they trace their origin in Aad Dharmi. You would have heard about Aad Dharmi in Punjab. That started in 1920s. We are talking about. The movement projected, that Saint Ravi Das. We are talking about, followers of Ravi Das. We are talking about Saint Ravi Das as their spiritual guru. This is in Punjab. You might be aware. You would have heard that it adopted a separate sacred book that's called Aad Prakash. Aad Dharmi, Aad Prakash. Adi Granth. You would have heard. Sikh Guru Nanak. That this is Aad Dharmis. Art Prakash, the sacred book we are talking about. Of course, you know that according to 1931 census, these Art Dharmis are 4,50,000 people in Punjab. 4,50,000 people in Punjab and that adjacent areas, that they have registered themselves to this Art Dharmis movement. Under Saint, let me repeat, under Saint Ravidas, the sacred book is called, that, of course, Ad Prakash. This is Ad Dharmis. We are talking about 4,50,000, that registrations we are talking about. Of course, we talk about, the movement largely declined after independence. It's, that it lost that bigger. Of course, even today you talk about 15% of Dalit population in Punjab belonging to this Ad Dharmis. Hope you understood. Ladies and gentlemen, I think, I think this is enough, that I took much of your time. Hope I would have thrown light, elaborate light, I believe. With this, you are capable of meeting all questions, that the UPSC main examination, I'm pretty sure. And whatever may be your queries, ladies and gentlemen, you can also reach me through social network and a Telegram channel, YouTube channel. Please watch all my videos on the part of YouTube channel of Unacademy, Success Sampath or Sampath Irvengidam in Telegram channel, that you might be aware, that Unacademy _ Sampath, where you can, be a member to get more information. Please watch all those videos on the part of sociology as optional subject, even ethics and integrity, even essay paper and international relations. You will, I'm pretty sure, that I'm here to work on behalf of you. As part of, that Unacademy team, that as top educator, we are there to support you. Don't worry. There is a team working on behalf of you. You try to, that you utilize this opportunity. Try to utilize our mentorship, that and our experience also in this field. The 25 years of experience, that we have as all are, that all top educators, definitely you can benefit. It's not mere, that survival. It's not getting mere job, part of government. It is getting career, ensuring your career and becoming, all India rank holder, topper. I told you many times, that let's take asylum in Dr. Kalam's, small aim is prime. Think big, aim high. But one thing is there, if you want to shine like a sun, are you ready to burn like a sun, my daughter? If you want to shine like a sun, are you ready to burn like a sun? No pain, no gain. I'm not talking about hard work, but you are towards smart work, effective work, because we smart people, that as mentors waiting for you, as top educators, part of Unacademy, we are waiting for you to shape you. Please, benefit out of our presence, make use of the opportunity, that if not now, then when? Ladies and gentlemen, as I told you, right, even iconic program, the price hike is on the card, the benefit out of it. Please use my referral code, say success, to avail maximum 10% discount, ladies and gentlemen. Welcoming you to Unacademy once again, ladies and gentlemen. This is Success Sampath, hitherto interacted with you. Hope I would have made your time, worthwhile. Ladies and gentlemen, reach me, as I told you, right, through social network, Success Sampath or Sampath Irvengidam. Please watch, that all my videos part of YouTube, Unacademy, even the platform you please download. You watch all my videos, that definitely will benefit. Let me assure you, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much, that for your passions and participation. And I appreciate you once again. Ladies and gentlemen, let's meet tomorrow, same time, with another topic. Till then, bye-bye. This is, that Success Sampath once again signing off from you. Thank you so much. Good night, everyone.